Chapter 341. Stopping Tony Duke's side. What a pity. Despite Raphael's best efforts, he couldn't defeat Shredder in the castle and was forced to retreat. It was O'Neill who injected a large amount of adrenaline, which freed the three little turtles. Poor Raphael was kicked to the ground by Shredder and didn't get up for a long time. "Oh, are you all right, brother?" Due to the adrenaline injection, the three little turtles were now extremely excited, their actions super sensitive. Michelangelo, in particular, was like a child with ADHD. "I feel better than ever, aho!" Mickey kept circling left and right, while Leo and Donnie were punching the air rapidly. Raphael, annoyed, got up on his own. "Damn, that guy is really strong. It's not just his strength, it's his mechanical armor with its own power." "Where did he go?" Raphael asked, looking around but finding no trace of Shredder. Leo responded, "New York City." Donnie added, "Times Square." Mickey exclaimed, "Shredder is going to release a gas that will poison the entire city. Then Sax will sell the antidote, which is made from the mutant gene in our blood." "We need to act now," Donnie said urgently. "Good, let's fight for Master," Raphael said in a deep voice. "Master, how is Master?" Leonardo suddenly asked, concerned. Raphael's expression darkened. "Master is dead." "What?" The three little turtles all stopped, especially Michelangelo, who was circling and fell to the ground in shock. "Teacher, Leo stammered. "How come?" "Although the teacher is dead, his soul is still preserved. Duke made it so, and he now lives in Karazhan," Raphael explained, gasping. Mickey got up from the ground, confused. "You scared me to death, and what is the soul?" "We'll talk about this later. Let's deal with Shredder first," Raphael said, shaking his head. "Go for Master!" Leo gritted his teeth. "Go!" the others echoed. "Wait a minute, O'Neill." Leonardo turned and shouted. "I'm here. Come quickly." O'Neill's urgent voice came from outside. When the four turtles rushed out, they were stunned. The ground was littered with corpses, each with one or two blood holes, clearly stabbed by the spikes in O'Neill's hands. Of course, they weren't dead. O'Neill couldn't bring herself to kill. After all, she was a reporter, not a killer. At that moment, O'Neill was commandeering a large truck. "Come on, we have to chase Sax and the others," she waved and shouted. The truck was riddled with bullet holes, evidence of a fierce battle. "Go, go!" Leonardo took the lead and rushed into the truck, followed by the other three turtles. "How did you get here?" he asked. "Duke sent me." "Now it looks like we have to get back on our own," Raphael said. "I hope it's not too late." "Don't worry, Duke must have already prepared something. He won't just sit back and watch the poison spread." Leonardo reassured him. "Of course I know. I'm worried that if I fail this test, I won't be able to join KLZ. Then I might never see the teacher again," Raphael sighed. "Oh right, while you were captured, I joined Karazhan on my own initiative." "What?" Leonardo was taken aback. "Weren't you against it?" "For the teacher. The soul can only exist in Karazhan. It will dissipate if it leaves," Raphael explained. "Okay, let's focus on solving this problem first," O'Neill said, stepping on the accelerator. The truck roared to life and sped off. After a fierce chase through the snow, they finally arrived in New York. At Avengers headquarters, in the Stark Industrial Building, a banquet was in full swing. All the members of the Avengers were present. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. "Sir, a person with unknown intentions has been detected," Jarvis announced, opening a holographic video. "Where is that?" Captain America asked, looking at the screen. Tony walked over curiously, holding a wine glass. He squeezed his chin thoughtfully. It looks like the Sax building. What the hell is that metal man doing? Is he trying to copy me?" The image displayed the roof of the H's building, where a metal man was operating some kind of instrument. "This looks like a villain," the widow remarked. She had recently taken a leave of absence, applied for a new identity, and rejoined the Avengers. "Jarvis, can you check what he's doing?" Tony asked. "Understood. Scanning," Jarvis responded. After seeing Duke's world watching eye, Tony had a new idea. He envisioned a comprehensive surveillance system centered around the Stark Industrial Building, extending throughout New York. This system would use multi-directional scanning and satellite monitoring to identify criminals in real time. Even a murderer hiding among pedestrians could be detected and tracked. However, Tony's system was still in its infancy and could only monitor one location in New York, unlike Duke's, which could monitor the entire Earth. Scanning, Scanning, analyzing, analysis complete. It appears to be a device for releasing poisonous gas with an accuracy of 93.5%, Jarvis reported. 93.5%, Maria Hill exclaimed, startled. That's a very high accuracy rate, Captain America noted, his expression turning serious. Tony, we need to go now. Let's move, Tony agreed. Stop, Tony. A voice suddenly echoed out of thin air. It was Duke's voice, familiar to everyone present. You don't need to worry about this. I've made full preparations. Just stay here and watch the show. That's all I'll say. With that, the voice disappeared. Everyone exchanged puzzled glances. Look, what is that? Black Widow suddenly pointed at the screen and shouted. Everyone turned to look and were immediately dumbfounded. They had seen many mutants, but this was something entirely different. Is this Turtleman? Tony wondered aloud. In the video, as the elevator door on the top floor opened, 4 people rushed out. They weren't exactly human. They were 4 giant turtles. They had all seen mutants like the Beast, Hank, and Nightcrawler, so they weren't entirely surprised. What shocked them was seeing 4 individuals transformed into turtles simultaneously. The odds of that happening were incredibly slim. Are they quadruplets? Someone mused. End of this chapter. Chapter 342. I guess it's Turtle Dad. Could it be that a human and a tortoise gave birth to 4 tortoises? I remember a famous person once said, humans and demons are born by mothers. Different people are born by their mothers. Demons are born by demons. To be a demon is like being a human being. You must have a benevolent heart, and with a benevolent heart, you will no longer be a demon, but a she-male. Tony spoke eloquently. Black Widow rolled her eyes. Who said that? I forgot. Then the question is it a human father and a turtle mother, or a turtle father and a human mother? Black Widow asked, her curiosity piqued. The people around her couldn't bear it and collectively rolled their eyes. In Western mythology, there are many tales of beasts and humans, which is not unusual at all. I guess it's Mr. Turtle, Tony said. Everyone. Then why not a human father and a turtle mother? Black Widow persisted. Tony paused for a moment, then rolled his eyes. I don't like turtles. Everyone. Okay, stop talking. Let's focus on the fight, Captain America coughed, quickly interrupting the conversation. Sir, according to my analysis, there is a 90% chance that the turtle will turn into a human and a 10% chance that the human will become a turtle, Jarvis concluded. Everyone. The screen flashed, and the 4 turtles rushed forward with incredible speed, displaying a set of smooth and varied martial arts moves, putting the Metal Man in an extremely embarrassing situation. Unfortunately, their opponent was a Metal Man, making it difficult to break through his defense. Mitch, do you still remember that phrase you often said when we were young? Raphael asked. You said you didn't allow me to say it anymore, Angelo replied cheerfully. Never mind that. Do you remember how to say it? Yeah, I've been poised for years. Cowabungie. This time, it was not as miserable as the original plot. With their new weapons, they managed to chop Shredder's metal armor into pieces like melons and vegetables. Shredder's fighting skills were far superior to the 4 turtles, but their weapons were powerful enough to easily cut through the fine steel armor. Wow, my nunchaku is carrying lightning, Michelangelo exclaimed after a flurry of dancing. He discovered that the nunchaku Duke gave him could emit a strong electric current. Wow, someone is going to be unlucky. Shredder never imagined that one day he would be electrocuted to death. The crackling nunchaku hit his body, and the strong current penetrated the armor, shocking him painfully and happily. Almost instantly, his body was paralyzed. Leonardo's double swords had ice, Michelangelo's nunchakus had lightning, Raphael's 3 spikes had fire explosions, and Donatello's long sticks had water. Whoa, yeah, I love flames. My water is fine. Wait, I have a plan. First, Donatello stirred up the water with his long stick and hit Shredder heavily. While breaking some armor, the water splashed all over him, some even penetrating inside. Immediately afterward, Michelangelo slammed the nunchaku, and the strong electric current crackled and hit Shredder. The conductive effect of the water made it even more effective. Shredder, who died instantly, was in pain and happy. Then Leonardo swung his 2 knives and slashed, directly breaking through Shredder's frontal armor. The icy breath froze the water instantly, further reducing Shredder's mobility. Finally, Raphael's 2 stabs pierced into the gap in Leonardo's chest, and then the flames exploded in the chest. Chila, tongues of flame spurted out from the helmet. Needless to say, Shredder was dead. He was not some Uncle Wolf with a self-healing factor. The helmet spewing fire proved that Raphael's flame exploded, injected from the chest cavity, then climbed up the trachea and esophagus to the head, and sprayed out from the mouth, nasal cavity, ears, and eyes. Dead through. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Yeah! The 4 turtles clapped, air hands excitedly. We succeeded. No, there's poison gas, Donnie, Leonardo warned. Understood. Donatello responded, running over quickly. After a moment, he announced, Okay, the order has been lifted. Huh. The 4 turtles finally felt relieved. Raphael strode towards Shredder's corpse. Seeing this villain reminded him of their fallen teacher, and his chest filled with anger. In a fit of rage, he kicked Shredder's body. The Avengers who were watching were stunned. This turtle is really irritable, one of them remarked. Leonardo was also alarmed. He rushed up and punched his younger brother. Are you crazy? There are innocent people down there. What if we hit them? How did the teacher teach us? In the past, Raphael would have quarreled with Leonardo, but now he remembered their teacher's lessons and felt a pang of fear. He hurriedly ran to the edge of the roof and looked down. Huh. It was okay. The area had already been cleared during the previous battle, so Shredder's body did not cause any additional damage. This time you got lucky. Don't be so impulsive in the future, Leonardo reprimanded. Raphael remained silent. I don't know how O'Neill is doing, Michelangelo said, worried. She's protected by Duke's shield. Bullets can't penetrate it, so she should be fine, Raphael reassured him. Then we can't just stand here. Let's go support her. Donatello urged. Remove the poisonous gas first, Leonardo said, looking up. How do we get rid of this stuff? At that moment, Duke appeared. With a flash, he intercepted the poisonous gas pipe, opened a portal, and threw it into space. It's that simple? The 4 turtles were dumbfounded. They had risked their lives fighting, and Duke solved the problem in an instant. You guys did a good job this time. Although most of the credit goes to the weapons I gave you, I'll give you a passing score of 60 points, Duke said. Welcome to Karazhan. Raphael was upset. Only 60 points? Leonardo elbowed his brother. Shut up. It's not bad to get 60 points, Duke continued. Thank you for saving our teacher, Leonardo said respectfully. You don't have to thank me. Everything has its own fate. All right, I'll give you 3 days to deal with things here, and then report to Karazhan. Duke opened a portal and returned to the city. The mercenaries downstairs might give you some more points. The 4 turtles were left scratching their heads. They needed to deal with the mercenaries and protect O'Neill. She wouldn't be killed by bullets, but with so many mercenaries, they could overwhelm her. However, it seemed that everything was under control. If something had gone wrong, Duke wouldn't have left so easily. After a flurry of action, they finally found O'Neill. Are you okay? Leonardo asked. You're not hurt? Michelangelo added. No, I'm fine, O'Neill replied. Sax fainted? Raphael inquired. Yeah, O'Neill nodded, pointing to the laboratory. These are the evidences, enough to ensure he never gets out. End of this chapter. Chapter 343, The Infatuated Thor. The end of the saxophone. Sax was finished and was arrested by the police who caught up. Seeing that O'Neill was safe, Michelangelo quietly climbed down. He was responsible for guarding O'Neill. After all, the security here had not been completely lifted. As for the 3 little greens, Leon, Raphael, and Donnie, they went down to deal with the remaining mercenaries. Sax was finished, and he would not be able to get out in this life. Of course, Schrader died even more gruesomely, falling into a pool of meatloaf. The metal armor protecting against recoil had already been chopped into pieces by Xiaolu, and she fell from the top of a 100-story building. Sk, that smell. Of course, he was dead when he was on the roof. 3 days passed in a hurry, and the little greens went back to their lair to tidy up briefly, mainly to put away some commemorative things. As for the others, they just buried them in this abandoned sewer. KLZ. Teacher, wait for me. Where are you going, teacher? Cool. Raphael, didn't you tell me to stop him there? What are you doing here? You ordered me again. Go. Forget it. Hey. Leonardo had a headache. After the quarrel just now, the teacher had disappeared, and he didn't know where he went again. As you can see, although it is still standing, it is actually an ordinary mouse. If it is not locked in a cage, it will soon run away without a trace. Leon shook her head. As soon as the four little greens came in, they protested in various ways, protesting that their teacher was locked up. As a result, as soon as it was released, there was no human figure or mouse shadow. Although it turned back to an ordinary mouse, the speed was still beyond their reach. The four intercepted, but still let the teacher run away without a trace. That can't keep the teacher in a cage like a pet. Leonardo protested. That's right. If you want to close it, you have to give it a separate room, Michelangelo said. That's right. Leon shook her head. Then unless you don't go in, it will run away without a trace when you open the door. In the past 3 days, we have struggled just to find it. Somewhat strange. It is obvious that the dead is only a soul, but the speed is quite powerful, and it often disappears in a flash. The mouse is gone. Even a few times, the white shadow flashed. The mouse disappeared. It seems that without the shackles of the body, it has become faster and more agile. Okay, this is not a place for you to play games. Duke's figure flashed and appeared in front of the four little greens, holding a white figure in the air. See for yourself, isn't this their teacher? Then he casually threw it to Leon. I've already set up an enchantment in the room, so it can't run away now. Let's put it back. Duke was also very curious. The transformation of the big mouse seems to be turning into a treasure-hunting mouse now. Okay, master. Leon nodded, floated into the room, and threw the big mouse in. Sure enough, it was hit by walls. The four little greens were a little dumbfounded when they looked at each other. Okay, since you have chosen to come to Karazhan, I will join you as devils. From now on, I will train you strictly, and today is your 1-week survival challenge. I hope you can survive. With that, Duke threw the 4 backpacks over. After the little greens opened it, they were all dumbfounded. Damn, what are these? 3 things like bombs, a 2L bottle of mineral water, flint and steel, an awning, a wristband, etc. And then, nothing. These seem to be outdoor facilities. This is 2, all armor is disarmed, and you can only take these things except your own weapons. Especially you, Donatello. Duke glanced at him. Now your test is to go to Skull Island to survive for a week. You don't need those things you carry on your back. Those electronic instruments on Skull Island are all useless. The 4 bracelets stay on my left hand. This will track your location and vital signs. If you encounter any life-threatening danger, I will intervene. But remember, this is a test of your survival skills and teamwork. Good luck. Duke addressed the 4 of them, checking the time before locking their life values. Before your life value drops below 20, I will not intervene to save you, he declared. With that, he stepped outside and revealed a skeleton reptile to the 4 turtles with a wave of his hand. The sight of the enormous, prehistoric-looking monster made the turtles gasp in unison. What is this? One of them stammered. This is what you must survive against for a week. The biggest threat on Skull Island is your survival. Additionally, every creature on Skull Island is extremely abnormal, including those that use the environment for camouflage, Duke explained, a playful glint in his eye. It's too late to back out now. Raphael immediately shouted, Are you kidding? This alone won't scare us away. Yeah, what's there to be afraid of? Michelangelo added, though the trembling in his legs betrayed his bravado. Whether you're afraid or not, this is already decided, Duke said, waving his hand again. He will be your guide. But remember, he will only tell you what to watch out for. He won't stay with you. A guide who doesn't stay with us? What kind of guide is that? One of them muttered. But then they noticed the figure looked familiar. Is that the Hulk? We can't beat him. Indeed, it was Dr. Banner, or rather, the Hulk. He was also heading to Skull Island. It had been a long time since the Hulk had a chance to unleash his power. Duke opened a portal and threw the 4 turtles and the Hulk through it. As soon as they arrived, the turtles were stunned by the primitive and dangerous atmosphere of the island. This is too much, one of them whispered. All right, I wish you a pleasant journey. Survive for a week, Duke said before closing the portal. He had received news of Thor's arrival. Looking towards the north room, he acknowledged the inevitable encounter. Opening the door, he welcomed Thor. Thor, it's been a long time. Come in, Duke greeted warmly, embracing him like a long-lost relative. It's okay. The troubles in the Nine Realms are almost resolved. Specifically, the plan for Thanos is still under discussion. I'm here this time because... Thor trailed off, surprised by Duke's enthusiasm. I know, you're here for your girlfriend, Jane Foster, right? Duke interrupted, waving his hand towards the north room on the first floor. You can take her away anytime. Thanks, Thor replied gratefully. You're welcome. By the way, when you're looking for Rocket Raccoon, go find Tony first. Maybe he can help too, Duke suggested. Although Tony was just the smartest guy on Earth, Duke wasn't entirely sure who had invented the necessary device. It could be Tony, not Rocket Raccoon. Thanks again, Thor said. End of this chapter. Chapter 344, Breaking Up. Knock, knock, knock at the door. Who is it? It's me, Thor. The room fell silent for a moment. Several seconds later, a voice responded. Wait a minute. There was a hurried sound of tidying up the room. After a while, the voice said, Come in. The door squeaked as Thor slowly pushed it open. He glanced at Jane sitting inside, then took in the room's environment before gently closing the door. Fortunately, the room had everything one could need. A refrigerator, kitchen, bathroom, computer, and more. It was comparable to a 4-star hotel. Jane had been living here for a while, and it seemed she had not been treated poorly. There was a diary on the table with something written in it, but Thor didn't ask about it. Instead, he turned to look at Jane Foster. Are you okay? He asked. I'm fine. They didn't restrict my freedom. I just didn't want to go out, Jane Foster replied lightly. The relationship between them seemed to have faded, which made Thor very uncomfortable. What about you? Has the matter with the Dark Elves been resolved? She asked. Yes, I spent a lot of effort these past days and finally destroyed the invading Dark Elves, Thor replied. Jane Foster gritted her teeth. How's your mother? She's fine too, Thor assured her. That's good, Jane said, relieved. The atmosphere became silent again. Thor didn't speak for a while and lowered his head, his eyes looking elsewhere. Jane had been holding back her anxiety for a while, and now she was finally relieved to get an affirmative answer. It was great that Thor's mother didn't die because of this incident. They both started to speak at the same time, then stopped, smiling awkwardly. You go ahead, Jane said. You first, Thor replied. How's your brother? Is he okay? Jane asked. No, he's fine too. Still locked in prison, Thor answered. The two of them, one sitting and one standing, asked questions and answered, maintaining a somewhat harmonious conversation. However, it soon fell silent again. The incident with the Dark Elves was not long, but it wasn't short either, and there seemed to be no words left between them. After a while, Jane Foster raised her head. Don't you have anything to say to me? What? Thor's heart skipped a beat. Shouldn't you be engaged? Jane Foster suddenly said, causing Thor to tremble. How? How did you know? Thor stammered. Before coming to Earth, he had been officially engaged to Sif. At the engagement banquet, he was very unhappy, going through the process half-heartedly, then sitting down for the banquet before it was over, and then he came to New York. The flowers on your shoulders haven't been taken off yet, Jane pointed out. I've studied the customs of Asgard to some extent. The flowers on your shoulders signify an engagement ceremony, don't they? Thor was embarrassed and quickly brushed off the flowers. Jane, You should have something to tell me, Jane interrupted. Of course You should have said, let's break up, Jane said firmly. Thor trembled, unable to believe what he was hearing. What did you say? Break up? He had thought about breaking up before dealing with the Dark Elves. But now, the Dark Elves were resolved, his mother was alive, and his brother's fate had changed, even if he was still in prison. Everything had changed, so there was no need to break up anymore, right? He never thought Jane would bring it up herself. Otherwise, you're already engaged. Do you want to have a lover, or a lover who is lost on Earth, and you don't know how many times a year you'll meet? Sorry, Jane Foster, am not that kind of woman. No, I didn't. Thor tried to explain. Jane Foster waved her hand. I've thought about it for a while. It's really not suitable between you and me. And as Duke said, I'm just a selfish person. No, you are not, Thor protested. I am. Jane suddenly raised her voice. I am. I've always been. Since I was a child, anyone who bullied me, I would bully back. I only care about myself, not about others. Jane Foster's eyes gradually turned cold, and she snorted. How many days do you think you've known me? As expected, I dumped you. Now you dump me, and we're even. No one owes anyone anything. Dignified Thor, don't make me look down on you, Jane Foster retorted coldly. Our fate is over. Thor clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. Okay, let's break up. As the words fell, Jane Foster slowly shed tears. I'm not crying, it's just an eye infection, she said, gently wiping away her tears. This is for the best, she thought. It's good for everyone. Thor understood. He was already engaged and had to be worthy of his fiancée. In the future, he would have a family. It was impossible to maintain a relationship with someone on Earth, let alone bring Jane Foster to Asgard. His mother would be furious, his father even more so, and it wouldn't be good for Jane Foster either. So be it. Thor, can you take me flying one last time? Jane Foster suddenly asked, raising her head. Of course, Thor replied. Soon, Jane Foster packed up her things. It wasn't much, just a notebook and her small bag. She hugged Thor tightly, and he rose into the air. Watching the two leave, Leanne pouted a little. Master, do you like breaking up relationships? What are you thinking about every day, you little brain? Duke knocked her head lightly and said, They were never married, and Thor's fiancée is Sif, not Jane Foster. Besides, I didn't need to interfere. They were going to break up anyway. What does it have to do with him? What do little girls think about all day long? At most, he just hastened the inevitable breakup. Well, Master is right, Leon conceded. Whatever you say is right, it is right, Duke affirmed. Flying quickly in the sky, Jane Foster could hardly open her eyes. She buried her head in Thor's chest, trying to memorize his familiar scent. After all, once the ether particle was removed, they would never see each other again. As they descended, Jane Foster opened her eyes. This is the Stark Industrial Building? Why did you bring me here? To find Tony. He might be able to help you remove the ether particle. Isn't that Rocket Raccoon's job? That's too far. Maybe Tony has a way. Oh, Jane Foster replied, resigned. End of this chapter. Chapter 345, On Your Left. Jane left. Foster felt a deep sadness in her heart. She had hoped to take a space trip with Thor, which she thought could serve as a final journey together before their breakup. Unfortunately, instead of traveling the universe and spending time searching for Rocket Raccoon, Thor had chosen to find the nearest Tony Stark. Does he really not want to spend even a moment with me? Jane thought, gritting her teeth. Perhaps this was a case of short-term pain is better than long-term pain. The Stark Industrial Building was eerily quiet. Thor searched around the top floor, but found no one. Until, Thor? A female voice called out. Thor turned quickly to see a familiar face, but couldn't immediately place her. Maria Hill, the woman introduced herself. Oh, I remember now. I saw you at Nick Fury's place, Thor said, recalling their encounter on the helicarrier during the New York invasion. She was one of Fury's subordinates. That's right, Maria Hill nodded. Long time no see. Where's Fury? Thor asked. And why are you here? He was unaware of the disbandment of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been disbanded. The newly established Avengers headquarters is temporarily here, Maria Hill explained briefly. Are you here for Stark? Jane, standing next to Thor, knew what had happened but didn't want to explain it. S.H.I.E.L.D. disbanded? Thor was taken aback. He nodded and said, Yes, I came to ask Stark to help me make a tool. Where is he? He's busy clearing up the remnants of Hydra. It's the top priority of the Avengers right now, Maria Hill replied. So when will they be back? Thor asked. Are you in a hurry? Quite urgent, and the matter is very serious. Compared to Hydra, it's like an ant versus an elephant. Maria Hill nodded. Okay, I'll contact them. Tony's communication was quickly connected. Hill, did you miss me? Tony's characteristic flirtatious tone came through. I missed you, but someone else did more. Maria Hill rolled her eyes. She was used to Tony's antics by now. Who? Let me guess. Is it Taylor Swift? Scarlet? Or? It's Thor. Thor? I don't know a beauty named Thor, and it sounds like. Stark, it's me, Thor. Thor couldn't listen anymore. He grabbed the communicator and shouted, Tony, when are you coming back? Amidst the conversation, the sounds of battle, booms and explosions, were clearly audible from Tony's end. Who are you? Why is it a man's voice? Where's the beautiful woman you promised? Stark. Thor was very angry. Okay. Tony finally became serious. Dude, you've been gone for a long time. you're back. Can it be your brother ran out again? If that's the case, I must be careful and beat him up. Thor's face tightened. He's still in prison. Let's not talk about that. When will you be done? I have important and urgent information. Another violent explosion sounded from Tony's end. I can be back today, probably before dark, Tony said, sensing the urgency. Okay, I'll wait for you at your house, Thor said, hanging up. At my house? What an unpleasant guest, Tony muttered. Guys, it seems we have to speed up. Hey guys, I found DJ, Falcon's voice came through. He was flying in the sky, tracking their target. He fled far south. Okay, received, Tony acknowledged. Falcon had joined the Avengers team. Despite the changes in Captain America the Winter Soldier, Falcon's powerful self-healing properties had ensured his place. On your left still echoed in his mind as he remembered the morning runs with Captain America. Finally, the moment arrived. When the Avengers were recruiting, after a few tests, both the Avengers and Bucky were brought on board. The brothers were ready to work together and make a difference. Around 6 o'clock, as the sky gradually darkened, a Quinjet landed on the roof of Stark Tower. A group of people disembarked. Captain America was the first to step forward, smiling as he hugged Thor. Long time no see, Captain America greeted. Long time no see. You too, have Chan. Get a lot, Thor replied. Captain America introduced the new members. This is Falcon, the new Avenger, and this is Bucky, my good brother who grew up with me. I guess you haven't met him before. Hello, Thor nodded at the two of them. Thor had only briefly appeared during the New York invasion. The rest of the time, he had been to Karazhan a few times, picked up Jane Foster once, and then disappeared. He hadn't met Bucky, who had been on a mission during the New York invasion. The rest of the team, however, were familiar faces. Seeing Tony walking down, Thor hurried to meet him. I've been waiting for you for a long time. In a hurry? Tony asked. About the ether particles, Thor replied. What ether? Tony began, but Thor cut him off. Let's go inside and talk about it. Once inside, everyone was surprised by what Thor had to say. You mean your brother's invasion of New York was supported by Thanos? Captain America asked, recognizing the significance of the revelation. I'm not sure, Thor shook his head. Loki didn't say. I only know that the leader of the Chitauri who contacted him was the one who gave him the scepter, but I think he must have had contact with Thanos. Peggy Carter nodded. 9 out of 10. Since Thanos is looking for the Infinity Stones, it is impossible for him to disregard the Soul Stone. The leader of the Chitauri knew about it, but still gave the scepter to Loki. That couldn't have happened without Thanos' authorization. Now it's bad. He knows that the gem is on Earth, and he will definitely come again. My father and Duke have already prepared for this. I came here to find Stark, to make an instrument to extract the ether particles from Jane's body, Thor explained. As he spoke, he gently brushed Jane Foster's arm, revealing strands of bright red veins. They seemed to flow within her blood vessels, but their direction was more akin to meridians. Wow, this requires establishing a series of parameters as a reference. Otherwise, if you're not careful, you coom. Tony mimicked an explosion with his hands. By the way, Duke can't do anything? No, he asked me to come to you, Thor replied. All right, Tony sighed. End of this chapter. Chapter 3 and 46. Goodbye. After living in the Stark Industrial Building for half a month and conducting countless simulations and model tests, he finally succeeded in extracting the ether particle. It was now contained in a glass bottle. Jane Foster, having spent half a month as an experimental subject, felt a wave of relief as she packed her things to leave. This place didn't belong to her, and neither did someone here. She glanced around silently, then turned and walked into the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, she whispered, "Goodbye." Once Jane had left, Thor, who had been hiding in another room, emerged. The Black Widow couldn't resist a joke. "I can't believe it, Thor. You're quite heartless. Such a beautiful woman, and you let her go without a second thought." "We've already broken up. There's nothing more to say. I don't owe her anything," Thor replied, shaking his head. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" she asked. "No," Thor admitted, shaking his head again. "I never really got involved with her. I didn't have the time." The first time he met Jane Foster, he had been sent to Earth by his father and landed in New Mexico. At that time, he didn't care for Jane at all. He was solely focused on regaining his divine powers and solving his own problems. It was a miracle they even kissed. After that, the Rainbow Bridge was destroyed, completely isolating him from Jane. It took a long time before Odin sent him back to Earth to capture Loki and retrieve the Tesseract to repair the Rainbow Bridge. But then, the New York invasion happened. After all the chaos, he managed to get the Tesseract and returned home without meeting Jane. The Rainbow Bridge needed repairs, which was a significant task. Moreover, the destruction of the Rainbow Bridge had cut off the road to the Nine Realms, causing widespread chaos. Once the Rainbow Bridge was repaired, he began addressing the troubles in the Nine Realms. He didn't return to Earth until Heimdall reported that he couldn't see Jane Foster anymore. Due to Duke's repeated warnings, he wasn't in the mood for a reunion. And in Asgard, he couldn't act recklessly with his parents watching. It was a miracle they kissed again. After dealing with the Dark Elves, he returned to Earth to solve the problem of the ether particles. Given his engagement, he wasn't in the right frame of mind for anything else. Even if he wanted to, it might not have been possible. Turns out it was a spiritual love, so you didn't feel sorry for her. The Black Widow shook her head and left. What kind of relationship is it without even getting on the boat? Thor scratched his head, feeling a bit embarrassed. Forget it, I'm engaged now. Wow, you're engaged, Thor, Captain America exclaimed. We've already missed it. Now you have to throw a banquet. Before the banquet starts, let's discuss what to do with this thing, Thor said, shaking the glass bottle in his hand. Looking at the flowing liquid inside, everyone's scalp tingled. It wasn't a good thing to be targeted by a powerful entity behind the scenes, especially when that entity was known as the Destroyer of the Universe, who would kill half the population of any planet he looted. This was simply a tyrant. Are you taking it away, Thor? Although Tony Stark wanted to study the ether particle, hoping it might enhance his armor, he knew it was too dangerous. It had almost detonated during the experiment, and he realized it couldn't be applied to his armor. Besides, he didn't want to be targeted by a powerful entity, even though he wasn't afraid. No, Thor said firmly. Until the plan is successfully implemented, it cannot be stored in Asgard. This will make Thanos keep an eye on it, and if something goes wrong, then we can only send it to Karazhan first, Captain America sighed. Everyone nodded in agreement. Considering Karazhan's reputation, they shouldn't be afraid of Thanos' prying eyes. Then let's do that, Thor concluded. Thor asked, so what about Loki's scepter? With the matter resolved, Thor didn't need to return immediately. Staying on Earth for a while seemed appealing, especially since his father had regained some of his lifespan and no longer needed to sleep in the golden coffin. Thanos wouldn't dare to attack aggressively at this moment. I don't know, Captain America replied, shaking his head. What? Isn't it in the hands of Eshield? Oh, right. Eshield has been disbanded. So, where's the scepter? Thor realized the situation. It's not just disbanded. It's been destroyed, Captain America clarified. Thor looked bewildered. What happened? Captain America explained the situation in detail. So you're saying you handed Loki's scepter to Hydra? Thor's eyes widened in disbelief. Captain America looked a bit embarrassed. We didn't know at the time. So now you're cleaning up Hydra everywhere? Thor asked. Yes, but that's only one of the reasons, Captain America replied. Hydra needed to be eradicated completely. Do you have any leads now? Thor was anxious. He couldn't let Loki's scepter remain at large. Sitwell knew, but he didn't say anything, Captain America said, shaking his head. Who is Sitwell? Thor asked. The bald agent you saw in New Mexico, Captain America reminded him. I don't remember. Don't you have any other leads? Thor was frustrated. Captain America sighed. This is his last card. He won't reveal anything until he gets enough benefits. We only know that it's in the hands of someone called the Baron. Baron? Thor was furious. He wished he could strike down the bald agent right then. The big deal is that I owe Duke a favor and capture the Baron directly. At that time, I won't have to be threatened by some bald agent. Thor, still fuming, grabbed the glass bottle containing the ether particles and flew out with a scream. Isn't it a bit unfair for us to manipulate him like this? Tony laughed. We didn't manipulate him. He agreed. Captain America shrugged. The rest of the team laughed as well. They all despised the bald agent's extortion. They wouldn't compromise or be blackmailed. Duke didn't care about Hydra. They had been there and could only come back disappointed. With just a few words, Thor was pushed to Duke's side, but no one expected Thor to think of it himself before it was made clear. After a day of flying, Jane Foster finally returned to her rented laboratory. She looked around but saw no one. "Daisy? Daisy," she called out. "Strange no one?" she muttered. Then she heard a low, strange noise and walked towards Daisy's room. She opened the door and was met with a shocking scene. 2 people, half naked. When did you two get together?" Jane exclaimed, seeing Daisy and her intern Ian in a compromising position. "Jane, why are you back?" Daisy was startled and quickly pulled a blanket over herself. "I'll give you 3 minutes to sort this out," Jane said, exasperated. End of this chapter. Chapter 347. I'm going to order takeout today. 3 minutes? That's not enough. Daisy panicked for a moment but quickly regained her composure. 3 minutes is enough. Ian wanted to cry. It didn't even take 3 minutes. He was just scared. "It's over." Daisy soon noticed something was off and glared at him. "Useless. Just wait for me." The second half of her sentence was directed at Jane. She quickly got dressed and followed her out. Meanwhile, Ian, still on the boat, scratched his head in embarrassment and began to clean up the mess. "When will you?" Jane Foster started to ask, but then remembered it was a private matter and decided not to pry. Daisy, however, didn't think too much about it and said dejectedly, "Just a few days ago. You and Dr. Eric weren't here, and we had nothing to do, so... Jane Foster was furious. She had just been dumped, and now she came back to find her best friend in such a situation. This was too much. Ian finished cleaning up and walked out, looking embarrassed. He greeted them and then carefully sat down next to Daisy, only to be fiercely stared at and quickly moved aside. "Jane, where have you been this month? If I hadn't seen you still tweeting, I would have called the police. You didn't reply to my messages. You were going to kill me," Daisy complained. "I got dumped." "What?" Daisy was shocked. No wonder Jane had such a big reaction. For someone who just got dumped, seeing others being affectionate was, of course, very painful. "You got dumped by who? Oh, Thor?" Daisy quickly understood. "Thor? You've been in Asgard for a month? Oh, wait, does Asgard have the internet? Where did you tweet from? Do they have computers there? No way, I thought they were like ancient people?" She pointed upwards, her focus oddly misplaced. Jane Foster stared at her best friend speechlessly. "What are you thinking? I've been on Earth for a month. In short, we're done. Don't ask anything else. I don't want to talk about it. Tonight I want a drink." "No problem. I'll get drunk with you." Daisy patted her chest vigorously, then glared at her boyfriend. "What are you still doing here?" "Me? Why?" Ian was confused. "Go out and buy some wine. Remember, don't come back if the bottle costs less than $10. Oh. Ian shrank his neck, picked up his wallet, and hurried out. As he ran downstairs, he wondered why he had to buy it himself when there was takeout available. The Chinese beauty shop had fast delivery service, so he didn't need to go downstairs. Also, what kind of wine should he buy? Ladies' wine, cocktails, rum, or beer? Should he call and ask? But remembering his girlfriend's fierce eyes, Ian put his phone away and walked towards the bar. He decided to buy a bit of everything, knowing their tastes. $10? You really want to squeeze Ian dry. Jane Foster shook her head. There was no place to buy a bottle of beer for 66 yuan RMB, but there was plenty of liquor at that price. Even in the United States, such a high price was rare. Cocktails were common, but beer was not. Daisy curled her lips. "Jane, you don't know. Despite his simple and honest appearance, he actually has some bad intentions. He pursued me, and you underestimate him. He has money at home." "Oh, then congratulations, you've caught a rich man," Jane Foster said, shaking her head with a slightly sad expression. Daisy wished she could slap herself. She had just opened a can of worms. She hugged Jane and tried to comfort her. "Although you didn't become Asgardian royalty, it's a pity that. Gardy's next princess, but there is no one in the world better than Nathor. There are things." "Where did you learn all these words?" Jane Foster couldn't help but laugh. There are indeed quite a few good ones in Vital, depending on where you are, but there are very few unique ones in Vital. "By the way, you just said that Eric wasn't here. Where did he go?" Jane asked, only now realizing his absence. "You can see for yourself," Daisy replied. turning on the TV. She tuned to the digital channel and played back the news reports from half a month ago. The screen showed Dr. Eric running wild at Stonehenge before being captured by the police. Jane was stunned. "What happened to him?" she asked. Daisy scratched her head. "I don't know either. According to him, after being hypnotized by Loki, he started seeing many images in his mind that he had never seen before. Then he mentioned 9 stars. The planes of the 9 kingdoms aligning in a straight line or something. According to him, where is he now? Is he locked up?" Jane inquired. "Yes, he was locked up. The police put him in a mental institution and prescribed a bunch of psychotropic drugs, but then he was released." "Why?" Jane asked, puzzled. "Because what he said was right. One day later, the planes of the 9 kingdoms really did align in a straight line and opened a passage. You were in Asgard, so you didn't see it, but wow, monsters from all the 9 kingdoms ran out, and many of them rushed to Earth. I always thought that superheroes were only in the United States, but I never imagined there were also in the UK, and the fight was intense," Daisy said excitedly. Jane Foster calculated the time. At that moment, she was not in Asgard, but was arranged in Karazhan. She hadn't paid attention to the 9 stars Lianzu phenomenon. There were some crazy rumors on the internet, and she was very depressed at that time, so she didn't have the energy to focus on those things. Now that she thought about it, that was when it happened. "What about Eric?" she asked. "He came out and was then picked up by the British Royal Academy. We were going to go there too, but we refused. Isn't this waiting for you?" Daisy explained. "Good sister," Jane exclaimed. "Ha!" Daisy smiled. She had refused, not because she was waiting for Jane Foster, but because she knew that once you entered that kind of academy, it was hard to get out. Bang! The door opened, and Ian walked in, panting and carrying a case of wine. "This is exhausting. Isn't it too unmanly?" Ian muttered, wanting to say, "Try climbing up to the 3rd floor with 50 pounds of wine." But this was his girlfriend, and a girlfriend is always right, so he held back. Daisy walked over, picked up 2 bottles, and handed them to Jane Foster. "Come on, my good sister. We won't stop until we're drunk tonight. Who's going to make dinner?" That who was Ian, who was exhausted and sprawled on the ground, not wanting to move anymore. He opened the store with his fingers and said, "Damn, I'm ordering takeout today." End of this chapter. Chapter 348. The monster Strana's phone rang. "Duke, where are you?" "I'm watching someone," Duke replied. "Oh, which beauty has caught your eye?" Diana's voice carried a hint of threat. "It's a man." "You actually like men?" Diana teased. "Diana, when did you become so mischievous? You're a very interesting person, destined to become a legend. But sometimes even legends have their quirks," Duke said. "Why is he another Captain America?" Diana's interest was piqued. Duke shook his head. "No, his popularity won't match Steve's. After all, Steve is the Captain of the United States. But in the realm of the mysterious, he will become quite famous." "Oh, then I want to see him. But there's something urgent happening now. You need to come back immediately," Diana said, sounding weary. The mysterious domain referred to the realm of magic, filled with unusual abilities. She had come to terms with the fact that she couldn't control everything. Even if Duke were to cheat on her, she wouldn't be able to catch him. With portals to places like Asgard, it was impossible to keep track of him. Duke's speed was almost equivalent to teleportation, covering vast distances in an instant. Even if he were to find another woman, she wouldn't be able to catch him. "Oh? Is it a big deal?" Duke asked. "It's huge. Your world observation eye has recorded it as the highest level of threat," Diana said. "Top level?" Duke suddenly became nervous. "Okay, I'll be right back." With a swish, he teleported away. Some people are destined to become legends, even if Duke intervenes. Stephen Strange, the future Doctor Strange, was one of those people. Duke had intended to accelerate Strange's journey to becoming Doctor Strange, but Diana's call interrupted his plans. Strange's legendary path was just beginning. A luxury sports car roared down a rugged, winding mountain road. Suddenly, a call came in. "Billy, what can I do for you?" Stephen Strange answered. "I have an Air Force colonel here. His lower spine was crushed by some kind of experimental device, and his middle thoracic vertebrae burst fracture. Well, I can handle that, but find something more exciting for me." "Don't waste my time," Stephen Strange said arrogantly. I also have a 68-year-old woman with advanced glioma in the brainstem. Do you want to ruin my reputation? I don't want it. Stephen Strange thought to himself. This was a terminal illness, and glioma was beyond anyone's help. No doctor could guarantee success. It wasn't a matter of skill, it was a matter of impossibility. As he attempted to overtake another car, their tires collided. The road was slippery from the rain, and Strange lost control, causing his car to overturn. Duke didn't intervene, and Stephen Strange's fate unfolded as it was meant to. Some people are destined to become legends, and Strange was one of them. His journey would be rough, but it was just beginning. The silence before the storm was over, and the darkness before dawn was coming. Duke teleported back to Karazhan. "What's the matter, dear?" he asked. "The Emperor's project. Something happened," Diana said. "Emperor's project?" Duke's mind raced. Mentioning the Emperor's project at this time likely meant the cockroach monster Muto was causing trouble. And there were also the siblings Ford and Allie from Avengers 2. Was Godzilla about to appear? Duke didn't ask further. He called up the highest-level red alert information from the World Watch Eye and checked it. Then he nodded slightly. It was as he suspected. In the secret experimental base, in the ruins of the nuclear power plant in Quiluro City, Japan, an ancient beast was revived. It attacked with a powerful electromagnetic pulse, destroying the entire base. Afterwards, the cockroach monster Muto flapped its wings and headed towards the other side of the Pacific Ocean. The U.S. military, upon discovering the presence of the monster, deployed defenses around the Pacific Ocean. Dr. Serizawa, who was in charge, informed the military that with Muto's destructive power, human weapons couldn't compete with it. He suggested contacting a superhero to take action, but no contact had been made yet. After Muto destroyed the new nuclear power plant, it attacked an old Mauzi nuclear submarine cruising near Hawaii to obtain nuclear energy. This disturbance woke the sleeping Godzilla, who then arrived in Hawaii, which had been ravaged by Muto. The two monsters fought briefly, but Muto, uninterested in a prolonged battle, flapped its wings and left. Godzilla, unable to fly, could only swim and continue to follow, but it was too slow. Meanwhile, a female Muto was lurking in Nevada, on the mainland of the United States, surviving at a nuclear waste site near Las Vegas. After its resurrection, it seemed the two Mutos were trying to meet each other. This is where the record of World Watching Eye ends, as this is where the events occurred. However, Duke knew that after the magnetic Muto communicated with the Japanese male Muto, they would head to San Francisco to rendezvous and breed. As for Godzilla, after detecting the Muto's communication, it launched a pursuit to maintain the balance of nature. "Is this information already known to the world?" Duke asked. "Yes. With the current state of the internet and powerful satellite detection, it's not easy to hide such events from the public eye," Diana replied. "It first broke out in Japan, then hit Hawaii, and now it's rushing to California. Such significant movements can't go unnoticed by the world." "Did they contact us?" Duke inquired. "No," Diana responded, then asked, "Why? Are you planning to sit idly by if they don't contact us?" "Of course not," Duke said. Diana rolled her eyes and handed over a document. "Take a look at this." "What is it?" Duke asked. "It's a secret file from the Emperor's project. Although I've left the organization, I still have allies within it. These were passed on by Dr. Chen Ling," Diana explained. "Chen Ling? Is that Comrade Z?" Duke wondered. "Comrade Z has appeared so soon, and she seems to be Diana's confidant. This? Forget it. Let's look at the data." In 1954, the United States discovered the super-destructive behemoth Godzilla awakened by nuclear tests and tried to use nuclear weapons to destroy it. However, they could only make Godzilla sleep deep in the Pacific Ocean. Afterwards, countries jointly launched the so-called Emperor Project to study methods of completely eradicating monsters. In 1999, an earthquake occurred in a mining area in Lungluban. Scholar Serizawa Ichiro, who participated in the Emperor Project, went to investigate and found the petrified egg sac of the insect-shaped monster Muto in the pit. He also discovered that a hatched Muto had escaped. In the same year, a nuclear power plant in Japan suffered a radiation leak due to an unknown earthquake, resulting in the death of engineer Joe Brody's wife. End of this chapter. Chapter 349, The Monster Strikes. The events occurred after waking up in 2007, so the incidents of 1954 and 1999 were not recorded. Did you check it back then? Duke asked. If I had, today's events wouldn't have happened, Diana rolled her eyes. The 1999 earthquake was covered up, so I couldn't investigate it in detail. There have been numerous earthquakes worldwide, and those in mining areas are not uncommon. The magnitude of the earthquake in Lungluben that year was not significant. Didi. The alarm started blaring again. Duke turned his head to look. This Muto is moving very fast. It's almost approaching Jujin Mountain. What did the U.S. government say? Did they notify us? No, not yet. Diana shook her head, and then her phone rang. Hello, Raven. What? Okay, I got it. After hanging up the phone, Diana's face turned quite grim. What's wrong? Duke asked. The United States has actually agreed to the military's use of nuclear bombs to destroy that monster. As Duke expected, these videos have already gone viral on the internet in various countries, and the X-Men Academy has naturally seen them. So Raven personally called to ask the president, but unfortunately, the other party refused, saying that it was just a bigger monster and it was unnecessary. They allowed the military to use the strongest force. And what is the strongest force? Of course, it's the nuclear bomb. Diana felt very curious. In the past, the president personally contacted the X-Men Academy to explain the mission. Now the X Academy made an exception for the first time and took the initiative to reach out, but was rejected. There seems to be an interesting signal in it. Maybe it's because they don't want to rely on them too much? If you always rely on them, doesn't that mean you have put your own safety in the hands of others? Moreover, these transcendents are very young and under control, so the United States is gradually reducing the number of cooperations and gradually lifting the dependence. It seems right to develop yourself and strengthen yourself, but, oh, what does this mean? Duke also showed a playful smile. Maybe it is to reduce their dependence on us? Diana sighed. She had no hope for the government of the United States. In order to show their strength, they ignored ordinary people. Once the nuclear bomb explodes, it will be in Jujin Mountain, the most prosperous area, so you want to destroy it? Even detonating it at sea would result in decades of radioactive desolation. I really don't know what these pig-headed guys are thinking. Then shall we still go? Duke wanted to laugh in his heart, wishing to save trouble. Lao Mei's life and death don't concern him. Of course we will. It will cost hundreds of thousands of lives. Diana glared at him. I knew it would be like this, Duke complained. Go. We have to go. My wife has let me go. Can I not go? If I don't go, do I still want to get on the boat? The Avengers headquarters at this time. Oh, shit! What is that thing? Seeing the nearly 100-meter-tall monster in the video, Bucky shivered. We have a new mission. Seeing innocent, ordinary people being killed, Captain America clenched his fists tightly. Steve, are you crazy? Can your fists move them? Bucky's eyes almost popped out when his friend wanted to attack. Why, are you afraid? Back then, you killed the Tyrannosaurus Rex in 2 strokes, Captain America's strokes. Can it be the same? The Tyrannosaurus Rex is only so big it can reach 10 meters in height, and this thing is 100 meters. I don't know if it will die if I punch it, but I will definitely be broken. You haven't seen them so easily demolish high-rise buildings? Do you think I can demolish a building? Bucky said angrily, panting for a few breaths. Let's leave this matter to Duke, I think. Tony, can you deal with them? Captain America also knew that he and the others were not opponents, but seeing the innocents die, they were finally pissed. Tony withdrew his dull gaze and shook his head. It's hard to say, he admitted. He wasn't sure if his laser weapon could harm them. He also doubted whether the large pulse electromagnetic hand cannon and the Palmark pulse gun would be effective. Judging by the opponent's attack style, it seemed unlikely. These cockroach-like monsters could also release electromagnetic pulses, and on a much more powerful scale. The interference of electromagnetic pulses on him was less than that on aircraft or instrument control, but it still posed a significant threat. Jarvis, analyze it, Tony commanded. Yes, sir. Analyzing. Analysis complete. Sir, the enemy possesses a powerful electromagnetic pulse capability. The power of your armor may be paralyzed by up to 90%. The minimum safe range is 10 kilometers. Thor sighed. It's over. The strength of the opponent's outer armor, judging by how easily they destroy buildings, is estimated to be 100 times that of the Chitauri's Pippi shrimp spaceship, Jarvis continued. Everyone raised their eyebrows at the mention of Pippi shrimp. It's even worse than I thought, Tony exclaimed. When he had attacked the Pippi shrimp with a laser weapon, Jarvis had told him that his energy would be exhausted before cutting through the shell. Although several years had passed and the weapon system had been significantly upgraded, it was still useless against something 100 times stronger. It seems we can only hope that Duke will step in, Peggy Carter sighed. Tony's weapons were ineffective, and Thor, the strongest Avenger present, was probably useless as well. Thunderbolt's damage was strong enough, but the opponent could release electromagnetic attacks and super long-distance impacts. Thor likely wouldn't be enough. I think I've seen their shadows in ancient records, Thor said suddenly. Have you seen them? Everyone was shocked and turned to look at him. Sorry, I can't remember clearly, Thor said after thinking hard for a while. I read a painting book when I was very young, and there seemed to be creatures like these in it. But the Avengers were not calm. Had Thor seen them before? Could it be that some alien god was experimenting on Earth? If so, it would be too outrageous. Since joining you, this Earth has become stranger and stranger. Is this the Earth we live on? Falcon frowned. The same problem was happening at the X-Men Academy on the other side. Is this still the Earth I know? Cyclops muttered, a little confused. The mutants had always been remarkable, often messing around in history. Because of their existence, they didn't believe in God as much, because they themselves were like gods. What the hell? It's probably a mutant like Wolverine. Dead and resurrected, is it still rare? The big deal is to add another ability to fly and ascend to heaven, so there is such a legend. What's the matter? My laser is probably not very useful. Jean, how are you? Cyclops asked. Jean Grey frowned, silently calculating in her mind. It's very difficult, she admitted. Hey! Suddenly, Kitty the Phantom Cat shouted, Look, is that Duke? End of this chapter. Chapter 350. Okay, let's go. Jujinshan had completely fallen into despair. People fled in all directions, the scene resembling hell, like the end of the world. And indeed, it was the end of the world for them. Goddess, have you mercifully deserted me? Someone cried out in desperation. It's useless to ask for divine intervention now, another replied. Then who are you asking for help from? A third person questioned. Please, superheroes, someone shouted. Avengers, X-Men, Justice League, Karajan, where are you all? Stop talking. No matter how powerful they are still humans. They are no match for these behemoths. Jujinshan is doomed. America is doomed. The world is doomed. Another voice lamented. No, Karajan can do it, someone insisted. We still have Superman, but none of them have shown up. They abandoned us. At that moment, someone suddenly pointed to the sky and shouted, Look, it's Duke. It's Superman. It's Wonder Woman. They're here to save us. A wave of relief washed over the crowd. We don't have to die, someone whispered. Mother, countless people knelt down and cried, some so overwhelmed with emotion that they kissed the ground. The feeling of rebirth after the catastrophe was palpable. At least, they had a glimmer of hope. 3 figures stood side by side in the sky. Duke, Diana, and Superman, Clark Kent. Duke glanced at the figure next to him, puzzled. Clark had actually come out of retirement? Hadn't he agreed to stay home with his wife and focus on starting a family? Long time no see, Clark, Duke said, extending his hand with a smile. Haven't seen you for a long time, Clark replied, shaking Duke's hand briefly before they separated. Are you out of retirement? Duke asked. I still have to go back later. Oh, by the way, my son will be born in 2 months. You should come to the wedding, Clark said. Oh, I'll give you a big gift then, Duke replied. Yes, Jonathan Kent Jr. He remembered something about forming a team with Batman's son, Damian, the Extraordinary Twins. Extraordinary Gemini, Duke thought. Alien bear children invaded the Earth and the Extraordinary Twins were defeated. But now, Damian had been born a long time ago and was in his teens, while little Jonathan was just about to be born. The Extraordinary Twins were probably not going to happen. The 3 stood in the sky chatting, but the people below were panicking. Why aren't they fighting? Someone asked. Are they discussing countermeasures? Another wondered. Do you think they can win? a third person questioned. I can only hope they win. If they lose, there will be no one left to deal with these monsters. Even if they can, it will come at the cost of tens of thousands of casualties, someone replied. Agreed, another said. The three heroes didn't move, and neither did the three giant beasts. Godzilla and the male and female Muto stood still, turning their heads to stare at the trio. The scene became increasingly tense. Both sides seemed to be waiting to see who would make the first move. Godzilla, a highly intelligent creature, sensed that the three people in front of it were not to be trifled with. The male and female Muto also noticed the super-advanced threat indices of the trio and roared manically. "Do you know what they are?" Clark asked. As an alien who had not been on Earth for decades, he was unfamiliar with these terrifying monsters. Such creatures would not be surprising on his home planet, Krypton, but on Earth. Compared to Krypton, Earth was a third-level planet, or even lower. According to the law that high-level creatures appear on high-level planets and low-level creatures on low-level planets, it was unimaginable for such giants to appear on Earth. "Yes," Duke replied. "This is Godzilla. The other two are Muto. I call them cockroach monsters. The big one is a female, the small one is a male. The male can fly, and the female is a power defense type. If you want to fight, you must target their weak points, like their mouths and eyes." Diana was curious. "They look like enemies?" she asked. "The two kinds of creatures lived during the Permian period in terms of paleontological time," Duke explained, though he wasn't entirely sure what stage 2.5 million years ago would be considered for the Protoss. The cockroaches feed on radioactive energy, and Godzilla is known as the natural atomic furnace. Muto's eggs need radiation to develop, so they often choose to lay eggs inside Godzilla. "What a pervert!" Diana frowned. The idea of laying eggs inside another creature seemed like something out of a bizarre movie. It's really abnormal. Since ancient times, Muto has been destined to fight Godzilla. It's even called Godzilla's nemesis. Note that the male Muto is adept at surprise attacks from the sky, while the female Muto is a melee force type. Muto's greatest ability is its electromagnetic pulse. "Pay special attention to Godzilla," Duke continued. "His tail is a powerful weapon, so be careful not to get hit directly. In critical situations, he can eject energy from his mouth in the form of blue radiation heat. I call it atomic breath. It sounds better than a hotline, right?" Diana was speechless. "How do you know all this so well?" "I've fought them many times," Duke said nonchalantly, then shifted back to the main topic. "This atomic breath can't be used multiple times because it consumes a lot of energy. It's important to note that Godzilla's dorsal fin glows before he uses it, starting from the tail to the back, and finally, the dorsal fin at the back of the neck emits a blue light. It's very distinctive. Once these lights are on, be careful not to engage head-on." Another thing to note is that Godzilla has intelligence that surpasses human intelligence. Judging from his current behavior, he has no intention of being an enemy to humans. Clark immediately understood. "So, our target is the two cockroach monsters? The name is quite fitting." "Yes," Duke nodded. "Let's assign roles. Clark, you handle the male cockroach monster. Diana, you take on the female cockroach monster." "You seem to underestimate me a little," Clark frowned. He couldn't beat Duke, mainly because of the suppression of magic, but these giant beasts had no magic. Moreover, the female was even bigger, and as a big man, he couldn't allow a woman's opponent to be stronger than his. Diana laughed. "Is it male to male, female to female?" "Your words seem a bit off," Duke smiled. "Of course not. The main reason is that Clark can fly. Although you can too, Diana, you're less agile in the air." "Okay. What about you?" Diana asked. "I'll deal with Godzilla." "Didn't you say that he is kind to humans?" Diana was curious. "I plan to chat with him to see if he wants to retreat voluntarily. If he does, I'll let him go. If not, I don't mind taking his head. I still have a lot of space in my collection." Both Clark and Diana rolled their eyes in unison. "All right, let's go," Duke concluded. End of this chapter. Chapter 351, The Face of Jang Omi. With a single command, Diana and Superman turned and charged towards the male and female Muto. The male Muto immediately took to the air, while the female Muto pounded the ground with her forelimbs, causing tremors that felt like a magnitude 7 or 8 earthquake. Seeing his prey being snatched away by these sudden intruders, Godzilla's eyes flared with a fierce red lotus flame. However, he was wary of Duke's presence and dared not act rashly. "They say you're a good monster, but now it seems you're just so-so," Duke chuckled. He never truly believed that Godzilla was a benevolent creature. The notion was merely a result of Japan and the United States collaboration, which had led to a beautified and modified portrayal of the monster. In reality, Duke knew that Godzilla was far from harmless to humans. In 1954, the United States had attempted to destroy the super-destructive monster Godzilla with nuclear bombs, but all they managed to do was put Godzilla into a deep sleep in the Pacific Ocean, blasting him with nukes and expecting him not to be angry afterward? How naive! To Duke, Godzilla was more akin to the 1998 version, a dinosaur that wreaked havoc on the New York Bridge. Suddenly, Duke noticed someone. With a swift motion, he flew down. "Ellie?" The name sounded somewhat ominous. "Why, it's me," Ellie stammered, startled by Duke's sudden appearance. She was a fan of Duke, and seeing her idol up close left her both terrified and flustered. The rain had soaked her clothes, making them cling to her body, accentuating her graceful figure. Her wet hair added to her disheveled appearance, and her face bore the distinct features of an Austrian girl. Ellie was the wife of the hero Ford. Ironically, in Reunion 2, she and Ford played siblings. The switch from husband and wife to siblings and vice versa was one of life's cruelest ironies. Duke wrapped his arm around her waist and took to the air once more. "Ah!" Ellie screamed in terror. Clark, who was battling Muto in the distance, turned his head and smiled. "You don't care? Better take care of yourself," Diana retorted angrily. She slashed fiercely at the female Muto's front leg, leaving a deep cut. Inwardly, she cursed. "I'll deal with you later, Duke. How dare you flirt in front of me?" Diana knew Duke wasn't picking up girls. There had to be something special about Ellie. Otherwise, why would he choose her out of all the beauties below? Meanwhile, Ellie's husband, Ford, was unaware that his wife had been taken away. He was anxiously inquiring outside the city. The recording officer shook his head. "Sam Brody registered at the Oakland station an hour ago. He's safe, but there's no record of Ellie Brody. She may not have left the city." "Can you check again? I asked her to wait for me, but I missed her," Ford pleaded. "We've moved all urban personnel to the subway shelter. Your wife should be fine," the recording officer reassured him while continuing his work. Ford was anxious, but managed to control his emotions, being a soldier. Little did he know that his wife was in the arms of her idol. "Enter Brody," a voice called out. "Where's Brody?" Another asked. "Are you Brody?" "Yes, I am," Ford responded. In the temporary headquarters, the general was coordinating the command while the colonel provided input. "Brody is the only EOD technician who survived the train attack," someone noted. "What's the backup plan if it fails?" another inquired. "The beach is just 1 kilometer away. Transport the bomb to the shore, load it onto a boat, and when it explodes, the farther from the shore, the better," the plan was explained. "Any questions?" "Dismissed." "Yes, sir," the team responded in unison. The officer pointed to the only satellite surveillance video and shouted, "Wait, look, someone has appeared. It seems to be Dharma God Duke and Wonder Woman and Superman." Due to the satellite's distance and the dust swirling around Jujin Mountain, the video images were extremely blurry. As a result, everyone present initially dismissed it, using it merely as a reference. However, no one expected the satellite to actually capture an image of Duke arriving. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room. With the three of them here, the world felt safe again. "What's the matter? Have you forgotten your duties as soldiers?" The general's voice was furious as he reprimanded them. "But sir," the soldiers were taken aback. They didn't understand why ordinary people like them should risk their lives when superheroes were around. Only the leaders knew that relying too much on superheroes would erode their own ability to defend themselves. If they always sought help, what was the point of having an army? "Get ready to move out," the general ordered. Just then, the soldier who had first shouted spoke up again. "General, something seems to be wrong." "What now?" The general was visibly irritated by the constant interruptions. Duke disappeared, and those 3 monsters in Jujin Mountain, they all vanished. Everyone was dumbfounded, Indeed, Duke and the three monsters had disappeared. But where did they go? Is it a malfunction? The general's voice wavered with panic. No. Someone ran in, breathless. General, it's strange. The radar scan, it lost the signal of the three monsters. What happened? Everyone exchanged puzzled glances. It would be one thing if the satellite images failed, but for the radar scanning and positioning to also have issues? Twice? Was this a coincidence? I think they must have gone to another dimension to fight, a soldier suggested, raising his hand. Are you out of your mind? Have you been reading too many Japanese comics? Another dimension? Another soldier scoffed. But Ford nodded thoughtfully. Do you all remember the Battle of New York? Didn't those Chitauri soldiers also disappear for a while, and then, when they reappeared, the war was over? You mean Duke did the same thing? The general asked, still skeptical. More or less, Ford replied, though he had his own doubts. It seemed like Duke had taken someone with him. The figure looked familiar. Could it be Ellie? The more he thought about it, the more it seemed possible. But the picture was too blurry to be sure. Damn it! The general slammed his fist on the table in frustration. We've done so much, and he just jumps in at the end to steal the glory. How will the president view us now? As an incompetent army? The general was already preparing for the inevitable reprimand. End of this chapter. Chapter 352, Blast Godzilla. Are you afraid? Afraid, Ellie responded without hesitation. She didn't have acrophobia, but anyone would be scared at such a height. She was also curious and puzzled. Why did her idol take her away? Did he fall in love with her? However, with a gigantic monster towering over them, was it really the right time to kiss her while fighting it? Moreover, she already had a husband and a son. She never thought of betraying her husband, even though her idol was right in front of her. Don't be afraid, there will be no danger, Duke reassured her, gently flicking Ellie's ear twice. It was very ticklish. Is this teasing? This is harassment, right? What's your name? I Lee, don't you know? Ellie was puzzled and was about to ask how he knew her name, but she suddenly forgot her question. Hey, human, you actually understand our language? I'm so curious. You can call me Mina. Mina? Are you kidding me? Duke thought, almost laughing out loud. As for Ellie, she was in a daze. She actually understood what Godzilla said. It wasn't Duke asking her about her feelings earlier, but Godzilla? The ear flicking wasn't teasing. It was some kind of magic, language magic. She wanted to laugh when she heard the creature call itself Mina, but she couldn't. She really couldn't laugh. Human, you are rude, Godzilla was annoyed. Why are you called Mina? Are you the eighth in your family? Of course, Ellie was surprised. Are there 7 other Godzillas? Or maybe there are many, and this one is just the 8th. Fortunately, she was a nurse. If she were a reporter like O'Neill, she would probably be very excited. These were unique pieces of information in the world. Then, Mr. Mina, can you leave? Don't worry, I will take care of these 2 monsters myself. No, they are my prey. Strong human, although you are powerful and put me under a lot of pressure, I will not back down. They are my prey. Godzilla roared. I'm curious, why are you so obsessed with killing them? Duke asked. In Duke's view, Godzilla transcended the concepts of good and evil. It couldn't be labeled as just or unjust. The fact that it surpassed human intelligence was enough to make Duke curious. Persistently tracking its fateful enemy, Muto, Godzilla had a strong hostility towards Muto, but the purpose was unclear. Although they were old enemies from the Permian period, in the modern age with abundant nuclear energy, Muto didn't seem to have the will to fight Godzilla, and Godzilla didn't need to track and fight Muto anymore. After all, Muto no longer needed to spawn in Godzilla. Dr. Serizawa had given an abstract speculation. This is to maintain the balance of natural forces. Duke scoffed at this. The old Japanese scientist had romanticized the situation too much, portraying Godzilla as a guardian of the Earth, an environmental protector. But if Godzilla truly wanted to maintain the balance of natural species, humans should be the first to be eliminated, as they were the biggest culprits of environmental imbalance. Dr. Serizawa's theory seemed flawed. Are you Chinese? Godzilla asked. You even know the difference between countries? Duke was surprised. This level of wisdom was extraordinary. These Godzillas supposedly lived in the depths of the sea, so how did they know the difference between Chinese, Americans, and British? Humans, don't think we are stupid. Since you are Chinese, you must have heard the saying, 9 generations of hatred can still be avenged? It can be done even for 100 generations. What? You even know the 4 years of Duke Zhuang? Are you sure you aren't a reincarnated soul? Duke was genuinely surprised. Ellie was also shocked. Thanks to the language magic, she understood everything. Duke was astonished. Not only did Godzilla speak, but it also spoke in Chinese. Damn it, is this still a monster? This is like a language professor among monsters, he thought. In short, she was a whale. I don't know about the legend of Gongyang. It's just that there is a beagle, T says so. I heard someone mention it. Right? Godzilla said, sounding unsure. Godzilla wasn't just terrifying, it was cultured. Duke was dumbfounded. This creature must have an incredibly long lifespan. Living for 100 years would be trivial for it. Perhaps it had lurked by the water as a baby, overhearing students lamenting the world and reciting poetry. Glancing at the other 2 battlefields, Duke saw that the fight between Superman and the male Muto was essentially over. It would take Diana a bit longer to deal with the female Muto, given its massive size. Since you don't want to leave here safely, then I can only beat you up, Duke said, wrapping Ellie in an airball. He then flew towards Godzilla. Hey, you're just leaving me here? Ellie shouted, shivering in the air. Don't worry, you're absolutely safe inside, Duke reassured her. All right. Ellie could only trust him. What else could she do? She cheered herself up, thinking, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I will definitely do it. Facing the human who put great pressure on it, Godzilla didn't dare to hold back. It prepared to unleash its full power. A blue-white blazing light lit up at the tip of its tail, climbing all the way up its back until it reached its head. The intense blue light also caught the attention of Superman and Diana. Roar! Godzilla opened its mouth, and a surge of blue flames spewed out. Is this the atomic breath? Diana was startled. She jumped back suddenly, dodging the female Muto's attack. The Muto's body was covered in sword marks of varying lengths and depths. Diana had been toying with it, not taking the fight seriously. Otherwise, she could have easily killed it by attacking its mouth and eyes. It wasn't every day she came across a powerful opponent. She wanted to have some fun. Clark had already defeated the male Muto. Despite its massive size, it was no match for Superman's strength. After a few exchanges, it was hammered flat, and finally Clark delivered a crushing blow from the sky, landing on the top of the minaret. Can this hold it? Clark was surprised to see the surging blue flame breath. Small matter, Diana replied confidently. She never thought Duke would lose to a big monster. To them, Godzilla was just a larger version of Doomsday, a mere toy. The thermal vision of a Kryptonian monster was much more intense than the 50-degree atomic breath, and she had resisted it without any issues. Duke raised his hand, but instead of releasing a fireball or an icicle, he distorted the mirror space. The world within the space changed instantly. The ground cracked, the floor became crooked, and the sky spun. Godzilla's atomic breath completely missed its target. End of this chapter. Chapter 353. Blast Godzilla. Damn human, you are so despicable. Godzilla roared, its blue atomic breath missing its target. It was originally aimed at Duke, but ended up flying upwards. Since we are all enemies, why are you talking so meanly? Duke retorted. Look at the fight. Duke didn't even move, standing straight in the air, but he mobilized the mirror space to press towards Godzilla. Death in the mirror space is also true death. Everything in the mirror space is not false. It adheres to the rules of nature. For example, the acceleration of gravity, the weight and volume of objects, etc. But all of these are controlled by the mages. Only a powerful magician can open the mirror space. You don't need to use other abilities. You can trap the enemy to death, even if you are trapped. Countless high-rise buildings under Duke's control smashed towards Godzilla. Boom, boom, boom! After a while, Godzilla's nose was bruised, and its face was swollen. Damn! Oh, roar! The mirror space rotated again, like a kaleidoscope, and the whole world turned in a big circle. Godzilla was stunned. It was originally standing on the ground, but now it stood directly on the vertical plane of a building. After another turn, it stood on the ground again. Of course, it fell and almost suffocated. After the world rotated, the high-rise buildings that originally stood on the ground hung above the sky, one after another. Then, one after another, they fell towards Godzilla like hailstones. Danger! Catastrophe was imminent. Godzilla lit up again, and the fiery blue glare quickly climbed from the tip of its tail to the top of its head. A mouthful of wow blue breath swept across the sky. The ultra-high flame of 50 degrees instantly melted the falling high-rise buildings, destroying them. However, there were still many huge boulders falling down piece by piece, hitting it and causing overwhelming pain. "It's not over yet, Mina." Duke snapped his hands apart, and a crack opened on the ground, swallowing Godzilla like a big mouth. This didn't end. Countless magma spewed out, tearing Godzilla's body. "Roar. You still dare to roar? Are you convinced?" "Don't accept it. Weak human beings. Dare to play me like this. Roar." Godzilla, who was falling, was furious. While enduring the pain of the magma gushing below, its body turned around suddenly. The four gecko-like limbs grabbed onto the cliff and climbed up bit by bit. Oh, interesting. Duke didn't make any dirty tricks and watched Godzilla slowly climb up. This version of Godzilla walks upright rather than crawling on all fours, and its forelimbs are much smaller and useless. Didn't watch the original plot? It basically bit with its mouth when fighting Muto. Only when the female Muto was finally killed did it use its two short forelimbs to open her mouth. It is a standing, swimming type. Standing, walking, and swimming in the sea also rely on the more powerful hind legs to swing the water and the tail to move forward. The forelimbs are more for assisting direction. So Godzilla is not good at climbing, especially on cliffs. It's slow to climb. Climb a little bit and fall a little bit, and it took several minutes to climb out. Human beings, don't play these dirty tricks. If you have the ability to face me, I will tear you apart. Godzilla roared in anger. But Duke, face you directly, right? Duke curled up in the air, then kicked his leg suddenly, rushing towards Godzilla like a sharp arrow. Kang! Strike hard. Ellie, who was spitting in the sky, was dumbfounded. A human actually sent Godzilla flying nearly 100 meters away with one punch. Isn't he a mage? As we all know, mages in the game are long-range and weak in body and strength. When did we get melee mages? As for her spit, although there would be no danger in the airball, the world around her was constantly changing like a kaleidoscope, and she stared desperately out of curiosity. Godzilla felt dizzy, vomiting repeatedly. It was unbelievable to him that a human could blow him away. One of his teeth had been knocked out, and he had no idea where it went. The pain was intense. This human was incredibly powerful. Was he even human? Hit hard, Duke thought as he continued his relentless assault. Godzilla saw stars as he was repeatedly thrown into the air, like a roller coaster ride gone wrong. The creature was suffering and longed for home. Finally, with a resounding boom, Duke slammed both feet down, pinning Godzilla to the ground and burying his head in the soil. "Are you satisfied? Are you convinced?" Duke demanded, riding on Godzilla's back and snapping off a dorsal fin with both hands. "Ah!" Godzilla howled in pain. I've taken it! I've really taken it!" "Really convinced?" Duke asked, breaking off another piece. "I'm really convinced." "Then get out," Duke commanded, kicking Godzilla heavily and pushing him towards the sea. Duke thought. Did Godzilla really think he was a fool? The creature still wanted to deceive him? Godzilla had never avenged the nuclear bombings by humans, so why lie now? Duke wasn't easily fooled. Godzilla fled quickly, like a marine iguana, using all four limbs. He nearly stumbled in his haste to escape, probably thinking that Earth was too dangerous and he should head to Mars. On the other side, the battle was over. Clark had already defeated Xiongmuto. Despite Xiongmuto's ability to fly, he was clumsy in the air and no match for Superman's agility. Diana had also finished off the female Muto, decapitating it with her shining golden blade. "It looks like it's over," Duke said, waving his hand to release the mirror space. The people of Jujin Mountain, who had been wandering around in a daze, were suddenly overwhelmed. The three monsters had disappeared for 10 minutes and reappeared as corpses. One was decapitated, another lay on a steeple with fist marks all over its body, and the sea monster had vanished. A fascinating silence followed. "Oh, I won!" someone shouted, breaking the silence. Jujinshan erupted with laughter and tears. "We won! We don't have to die. Mom, where are you? I miss home. Thank you, Lord Fashion. Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman." Long live Superman. As for Ellie, Duke had already placed her on the ground to reunite with her husband. Why did you like it? Diana joked, though there was a hint of menace in her tone. Duke shivered subconsciously. How is it possible? Cough, cough. Let me tell you something. If you look closely, you'll find something interesting soon. Diana rolled her eyes, speechless. End of this chapter. Chapter 354. The Wonder Woman is much prettier than me. Duke turned his head to look at the deep pit, then smiled at Clark. You don't want the spoils, do you? Work hard. The two were not well acquainted. Clark smiled back. It's not hard. Just remember to come to my child's birth ceremony. As for the loot, it was nothing more than Muto's body, and Clark wasn't interested. He turned around and rushed towards the deep pit, holding the nuclear egg and rising straight into the sky. It quickly entered space, and the nuclear egg floated slowly in the universe. While withdrawing, Clark sent out another wave of heat vision rays to detonate the nuclear egg, preventing it from falling back to Earth due to unforeseen circumstances. People on the ground saw it, a fleeting red dot in the sky, about the size of a needle's eye. It wasn't difficult for those with good eyesight to spot it. After finishing the task, Clark did not return to Jujin Mountain, but instead headed back to Metropolis. Looking at the eggs in the deep pit, Duke burned them to ashes. Not far away, the general's army finally arrived and began organizing people to go to the competition field, a temporary refuge area. In fact, the moment the three monsters disappeared, the entire army had already been dispatched. However, they were blocked from entering the mirror space. Outside of Jujin Mountain, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get in. It was as if an invisible barrier prevented anyone from driving through. Until 10 minutes ago. General, the scanning information of the nuclear egg is missing, the chief soldier reported. Stupid! The nuke has been taken to heaven by Superman, the general cursed. The chief soldier felt aggrieved. He really hadn't seen it. Ford, who was following in the car, suddenly spotted his wife on the street and jumped out excitedly. Ellie? Ford? After a moment of confusion, Ellie saw her husband and immediately rushed over, crying. It's okay. It's over, Ford said, patting his wife's back gently to soothe her. The army didn't care about the young couple's reunion. The nuclear egg had been carried to the sky by Superman, and Ford had lost his only role, so they continued to drive forward. After crying, Ellie wiped her tears and said excitedly, Ford, you know, I saw Duke, my idol. I know he's your idol, Ford said, feeling a mix of amusement and slight discomfort. Men often hope to be their wives' idols, the heroes in their hearts. Knowing his wife's idol was someone else made him feel uneasy. Of course, Ford was aware of the gap between himself and Duke, but it still bothered him. Wait a minute, the one Duke flew into the sky with his arms just now, couldn't it be you? Ford asked, suddenly realizing. Ellie choked. Although Ford wasn't the jealous type, men were very concerned about such things. He immediately became entangled. Ahem, it seems to be. She decided not to hide it, as many people had seen the scene. Why? Do you doubt me? Ellie raised her eyebrows. The Wonder Woman is much prettier than me. That's not what I mean. I mean, why? Do you know her? I don't remember you meeting him. Also, why did he fly you into the sky alone? I didn't think so. To say something beautiful, there are so many beautiful places around, Ford explained frantically. Ellie scratched her head, her hair wet from the rain and feeling very uncomfortable. I didn't know at first, but when the monster was dealt with, I found out. He said that he had seen a person who looked exactly like me. Exactly the same? Ford asked, bewildered. Do you have any sisters? Why don't I remember? Could it be that they were left behind? Duke grew up in Japan and learned a lot about Japanese culture. His wife, who also grew up in Japan, changed her surname after marriage. Duke didn't recall Ellie having any sisters. Unless they were twins, it was impossible for them to look exactly the same. The possibility of Ellie's father having an illegitimate daughter was ruled out, as Duke had never heard from his mother-in-law about a missing sister-in-law. How strange. These words came from Duke, known as the God of Law, who was unlikely to admit a mistake. I don't know about this either. I asked him, but he didn't tell me. Maybe they just look alike? In medicine, there are cases where people who are not related by blood look similar. Or I could go back and ask my mother? Ah. Let's go to Sam first. Well, come with me. In the distance, the general was still marching hurriedly. Seeing that Duke had decapitated Muto, he immediately stepped forward and said, "Mr. Duke, thank you for helping humanity." Duke turned his head and glanced at him. In his impression, this guy was just a general from Godzilla 2014, a mere passerby. Duke was too lazy to pay attention to him. He turned back and continued to cut, as this was his collection. The body was gone, but the head had to be kept. Seeing that Duke ignored him, the general was a little angry but had to endure it. "Mr. Duke, there are only two ends here. Where did the other one go?" "Godzilla!" Dr. Serizawa suddenly jumped out. Duke gave him a playful look and said with disdain, "I beat him up and he rolled back into the sea. The little thing lied to me. Dishonest. I had to beat him up to make him honest." Lie? A group of sergeants received an incredible piece of news. Could Duke understand Godzilla? Serizawa was even more dumbfounded, her mouth wide open. "Don't believe it?" Duke raised his hand, and the two dorsal fin plates scattered on the ground in the distance, as well as the nearly 2-meter-long teeth that had been hammered off, flew over and landed at his feet. Everyone was dumbfounded again. Although they knew Duke was powerful, the huge difference in body size made it still a little unbelievable. "Mr. Duke, but—" Just as Dr. Serizawa was about to speak, Duke directly opened a portal and threw the two bone plates and one tooth into it. "Brush that tooth for me. It stinks!" So Serizawa quickly shut up. "Who is that? What were you going to say?" "No, nothing." Duke saw Dr. Chen Ling, the assistant behind Dr. Serizawa, blinked but did not speak. "Mr. Duke, can these two corpses be handed over to us?" The general had already noticed that Duke intended to keep the two heads, but what about the bodies? Duke opened the portal and continued to throw the bodies in. "Empty the blood for me, take care of it, and throw it into my collection library." As for the bodies, Duke set them on fire, completely burning them. Originally, he didn't want the bodies, but the general's domineering tone was too much. Who did he think he was, daring to talk to Duke like that? "You." The general was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Unfortunately, Duke didn't give him a chance to speak. He grabbed Diana and entered the portal. End of this chapter. Chapter 355, The Test of the Paladin. Inside Karajan, they were having dinner together, despite the prohibition during special periods. Wow, such long teeth. Tony stood next to Godzilla's teeth, realizing they were taller than him. "Isn't this too exaggerated? How about giving them to me?" "You greedy bastard, you want everything." Howard suddenly jumped out and slapped his son hard. Tony looked aggrieved. Duke, however, didn't mind and waved his hand dismissively. "Forget about Godzilla's teeth. I can give you the spine plate." "The big one?" Tony asked, hopeful. "What do you think? Of course it's the small one." "Well, it's better than nothing," Tony pouted. He had been thinking about how Godzilla sprayed atomic breath. The bone plates seemed to shine with a strong blue light, as if energy was stored in them. While the bone plate was just a feature, it obviously contained some energy from the atomic breath. It was worth studying. If he could install this on his armor, it would be even better. The U.S. team gritted its teeth and asked, "Is there any way to improve my abilities as soon as possible?" "Oh, feeling a sense of urgency?" Duke inquired. "Yes," Steve admitted. Disasters were escalating wave after wave, and he had realized his abilities were insufficient. Against the big monsters this time, he was useless. Could he use his fists to KO Godzilla or Muto? Don't be ridiculous. He wasn't Superman. Bucky, who had gotten the red dragon gem, still didn't dare to rush forward. He had fallen far behind the echelon. "Technology," Duke pointed to Tony. "The fastest way is technology." Tony's growth was practically unlimited. As long as his brain could keep up, his armor could be updated from generation to generation. "It doesn't seem to fit me," Steve shook his head. Ever since he knew that the big boss Thanos was watching, he had doubts about his abilities. Fighting against evil mercenaries was no problem, and he wasn't afraid to fight against an evil organization, but a universe-level bully. Human abilities are limited, but the path of magic is endless. "I have a way to make you stronger, but I don't know if you can withstand its test," Duke said. "No matter what it is, I have confidence." Steve clenched his fists firmly. "Okay," Duke said. "If Captain America were to become a professional in World of Warcraft, what would he be? A warrior, a knight, a shield bearer? Hey, who's the paladin? I have an inheritance called the Test of the Paladin. I hope you can survive it. Paladin! Everyone gasped. Knight had always been a legend in the Middle Ages, and paladins had been passed down in various versions of the story. There was no World of Warcraft in this world, so they didn't know what a paladin was like. It was just that it was portrayed very well in various stories. Steve was also a little excited. Duke continued eloquently. Paladin is defined as having omnipotent and diverse abilities. As guardians of the Holy Light, paladins are noble and loyal. They are the mainstay of the team and can use sacred auras to assist teammates. Blessing spells can also be used to protect and enhance the strength of injured comrades. Paladins are very noble and honorable characters. They are not afraid of sacrifice and choose to sacrifice everything for justice. The more Duke talked, the more excited Steve became, feeling that this paladin was just for him. While drinking coffee, Diana looked at Duke curiously. This profession seems to be born for Steve. Hey, maybe? Duke replied. Captain America was indeed a paladin. This conclusion was almost unanimous among Warcraft players. As for the fighter, relying on the existence of anger, that role suited Banner. It was worth mentioning that Duke had already told Banner how to control his anger, but he was from the legal system and couldn't get the inheritance talent of the warrior system. As for paladins, perhaps they were defined as sacred magic by the system. Paladins already possess sacred magic. The more loyal a paladin is to the Holy Light, the stronger their strength will be. Holy Light? Steve was puzzled. What is Holy Light? Holy Light is an invisible belief that transcends races, worlds, life, and death. Its effect becomes purer with the user's piety. Holy Light is an energy with a certain autonomous will. It repels corruption and resists darkness. The source of the Holy Light comes from the user themselves. If there is no doubt in their heart, the Holy Light will last forever. The more Duke explained, the more confused Steve became. Duke sighed, feeling helpless. There is no pure Holy Light creature like Naru in this world, but this world still has Holy Light. For instance, the Tauren Paladin Sunwalker derives their belief from solar energy, though the relationship between solar energy and Holy Light is not clearly explained. In Duke's view, light is Holy Light, and Holy Light is light. Even at night, there is Holy Light. The universe is divided into light and darkness. The boundless cosmic space is darkness, while galaxies, stars, and other celestial bodies are light. Although there is no Naru, there is an eternal God in this world, and Holy Light can be considered part of eternity. For example, according to inherited occupation, Thor's father Odin is a paladin, Duke said, pointing to Thor, who was drinking nearby. Thor was stunned. My father? He quickly understood. Indeed, his father used the golden holy light to attack enemies. If you count it this way, he really does qualify. I still don't understand. Steve shook his head. Holy light is life and justice. You can also think of sunlight as holy light, Duke explained. Steve continued to frown. Duke didn't elaborate further because it's impossible to fully explain holy light without experiencing it firsthand. Moreover, Steve needed to make some related preparations. Go back and keep your mental and physical strength at its peak. In a week, come to take part in the test. You will face hell on earth, and the life and death of tens of thousands of people will be in your hands. What you have to face is the Holy Spirit. The 8 virtues of a knight: humility, honesty, compassion, courage, justice, sacrifice, honor, and the test of the soul. Steve nodded solemnly, turned, and left Karajan, determined to maintain his mental and physical strength. Take this, Duke said, handing him a booklet. This is... Steve glanced at it and was a little dumbfounded. It was titled, Hymn of the Holy Light. End of this chapter. Camber. Chapter 356. The Arrival of Doctor Strange. Holy Light is not merely a philosophy, but a way of living, providing followers with spiritual power and guidance. For those who truly understand the light, faith is practiced through example. The most fundamental concept of the light is the emotional and sensual connection between the self and the world. If you can feel emotions, you know you exist, because where those emotions arise, there is some kind of power. If you open yourself up to the beauty of the world, you can release the beauty within you. Yet, if you allow yourself to succumb to despair, you diminish your right to exist. Humans are the first followers of the light. 6 days have passed slowly, and tomorrow is the day of the test. During these days, Steve has been maintaining ample mental strength and enhancing his physical fitness. The rest of the time was spent reading through the Hymn of the Holy Light, repeatedly, but he couldn't understand it at all. Understood? Peggy Carter asked as she approached, holding a glass of almond milk. Almond milk is said to be good for the brain. She couldn't help much, so she did what she could. Steve shook his head and closed the notebook. I don't understand it at all. Drink first, Peggy said. Steve threw his head back and gulped it down. It's like a philosophy book, as it literally means, like an idealistic feeling, he said skeptically. Don't think too much. You need to maintain plenty of energy to cope with tomorrow's test. Maybe during the test you'll understand, Peggy comforted him. Don't worry, I won't lose, Steve declared. Meanwhile, another tragic figure was facing his own test. It was raining lightly in Manhattan, New York, and the whole sky was foggy and gray. He doesn't agree? Christine Palmer asked as she walked in with a bag of groceries. The bearded Stephen Strange, looking disheveled, shook his head in despair. Quack, doctor. There's new technology in Tokyo. They cultivate and upgrade donor stem cells and use three-dimensional printing of chromosome skeletons, but I need to raise some money first. Stephen, Christine said gently. Not much. The cost is only $20,000, Stephen exclaimed. Christine was helpless. 20,000? You always spend as much as you earn, and you're completely overdrawn now. Where are you going to get $20,000? Should you consider giving up? During this period, all the family property had been sold to cover medical expenses, except for medical insurance. Even the destroyed car was sold for a few $1,000s. Although the car was a good one, it had been wrecked, so they could only sell the parts. Those who bought the car would definitely make a lot of money, but the key was that no one was willing to buy it. Otherwise, Stephen wouldn't have sold it at a low price. No, 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 now is definitely not the time to give up. As you can see, I'm not getting better at all, Stephen shouted, almost hysterically. His career was ruined, his future was ruined, his life was ruined. Why are you so persistent? There are some things you can't do anything about, Christine said. A life without a career, Stephen muttered. That's life too, Christine insisted. It's not the end of the world. There's always something else that makes your life meaningful. Like what, you? Stephen retorted. Christine froze for a moment, then got angry. You should apologize to me now. You should turn away now. We're not friends, Christine, nor lovers. You like tragedies, and I'm a tragedy. Poor Stephen, look how poor he is. He finally needs you, another outcast in society, to save. You are so happy that you can't wait to sing, don't you? Christine stopped expressing her opinions and turned to leave. Goodbye, Stephen. She picked up her bag and dropped the key to the house on the way out. From Duke's point of view, it seemed like Stephen was deliberately driving Christine away. After all, he was already a broken man. Without his career as a doctor, how would he earn money to support his family? Stephen stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the gray sky outside, which mirrored his somber mood. He couldn't help but think about his relationship with Christine. Could it really be sustained by mere pity and weak affection? He was a cripple, a beggar. How could he expect her to stay with him? It was only a matter of time before the relationship faded, and they would have to part ways. Long-term pain was worse than short-term pain. Christine deserved someone better, someone who wasn't a burden. As he pondered these thoughts, his eyes fell on the newspapers scattered on the floor. One headline caught his attention, Karazhan. His eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope. Karazhan? He muttered to himself. Perhaps this place held the key to his salvation. Determined, Stephen began to prepare for the journey. He donned a raincoat, rain boots, and rain pants. He packed an external umbrella, an outdoor tent, a sleeping bag, and some high-calorie food. He also took the food Christine had left on the table, placing it in his bag. Karazhan was a magical place, and maybe, just maybe, the mages there could help him. Stephen knew the journey would be arduous. He was prepared for a long and challenging trek through the surrounding forest, where he would likely get lost and have to find his way back to the entrance multiple times. As a doctor who believed in science, he had always been skeptical of magic. But now, with no other options, he was willing to explore this new path. Days passed slowly, and the 1-week deadline approached. Stephen was ready to face the test with renewed energy. "I'm ready," he declared. Jennifer, a druid who respected all life, whispered to her master, "Master, that strange man has entered the forest 26 times. He hasn't slept for a day and a night. He's only eaten a little to keep his strength up and hasn't even drunk much water. If this continues, he might die." "Ah," the master responded nonchalantly. Jennifer was puzzled. "Do you want me to drive him away?" she asked. She couldn't bear to see someone die before her eyes, and the master's indifference confused her. Usually, people who attempted to enter Karazhan would give up after 1 or 2 tries, but this man had made 12 attempts in the rain and 14 more after it stopped. His perseverance was extraordinary. This was what it took to seek something from Karazhan. Jennifer wondered if the master cared at all. End of this chapter. Chapter 357, Your Path is Not With Me. Today's Karazhan was bustling with activity. Many familiar faces, some of whom hadn't been seen in a long time, had gathered. Mr. Wayne was among them, having heard that a new professional would be awakened today. He came to witness the event. Aquaman Arthur also made an appearance. The group conducting the inhuman raiders outside had temporarily returned. Avengers like Tony and Thor were present, as were a few members of the X-Men. It was truly a gathering of big shots. "Jennifer, go and bring him in," Duke instructed, noticing that Stephen Strange was about to give up. After walking for a day and a night and being drenched in the rain, Stephen was exhausted. If this continued, he might not survive the surrounding forest. "Okay, Master," Jennifer replied respectfully. She transformed into a bird and flew out. The Flash Barry Allen couldn't help but exclaim, "Whoa, that's cool." It was his first time witnessing Jennifer's ability. In fact, half of the people present had never seen her unique transformation. Outside, Stephen Strange knelt on the ground, shouting to the sky, What? God, why did you reject me? Cough, cuff." Exhausted and feeling a loss of strength, Stephen's body tilted uncontrollably to the side. He didn't believe in myth, but now, besides shouting God, he didn't know who else to call. "God, the old man is sleeping. He can't help you." Jennifer appeared, her voice cutting through his despair. Stephen opened his tired eyes and looked towards the voice. I must be dreaming." He saw a bird transform into a beautiful woman. It was too shocking. If he hadn't resisted, he would have fainted. Jennifer shook her head and poured a touch of green light into her hand, dispelling Stephen's fatigue. He finally recovered, feeling a surge of energy in his body. He couldn't help but be surprised. "Who are you?" he asked. "Jennifer Calvino. Duke is my master. Who are you?" Even though her master had ordered her to bring him in, she didn't feel that the man in front of her could threaten Karazhan. However, she decided to interrogate him first. Karazhan was not an orphanage. Not everyone could enter. "I am Stephen Strange, a doctor. A former doctor, I think." Jennifer waved her hand dismissively. "Come in with me. Master asked me to take you in, but whether your demand can be realized depends on your luck." When she healed him, she noticed his hands with broken tendons. It was obvious why he had come. Although she respected life, she was not a saint, and it was not her duty to heal his hands. Oh. Stephen held back his excitement and followed her carefully. Ordinary people rarely entered Karazhan. "Remember the path I have traveled. If you take one wrong step, you will die," Jennifer reminded him. "Oh!" Stephen was taken aback and quickly lowered his head to look at the footprints on the ground. "Am I supposed to step on your footprints?" He knew the mechanisms of some tombs. Sometimes the wrong footprints could trigger traps. "No, just follow this path." "Oh." After wandering around for a few minutes, Stephen Strange finally entered the hall of Karazhan. He was dumbfounded when he saw a group of big shots inside. All the superheroes in New York seemed to be there. Was something important being discussed? Had he come at the wrong time? Should he turn around and leave? "Strange?" A familiar voice called out. Stephen looked up and was surprised to see, "You, Mr. Wayne, are you here?" Wayne, the helm of one of the famous 4 big families in New York, was someone Stephen had the honor of treating before. Not as a personal doctor, but as an expert in the field of neurology. "Stephen Strange," Duke called out. "It's me." Seeing the righteous master, Stephen Strange hastily bowed. Wayne frowned as he watched the man stretch out his haggard hands after surgery. Please, please help me, the man pleaded. For a doctor, losing his hands means losing his career, and losing his career means losing his life. Wayne understood this all too well. He didn't mind helping the man, but this was Duke's domain, and it wasn't his place to intervene. The meridian is useless, Duke declared. Yes, Stephen Strange nodded. In Western medicine, it is referred to as nerves, but in Chinese medicine, it is called meridian, which coordinates everything: cells, gaps, connective tissue, blood vessels, lymphatics, body fluids, endocrine and immunity, and multiple nervous systems. Saving you is as simple as taking a breath from me, Duke said. Stephen Strange's eyes lit up with hope. Then, that! But why should I help you? Duke interrupted, his words like a cold splash of water, extinguishing Stephen's excitement. Wayne frowned, contemplating whether he should speak up for Stephen. Saving Stephen's life wasn't enough to make Duke owe a favor. He sighed inwardly. The situation was too unequal. Stephen Strange stammered, searching for something he could offer in exchange. But he had nothing. Hope was within reach. Should he give up? No, Duke waved his hand dismissively. I can save you, but your path is not with me. I will show you a path. What path? Stephen Strange asked, a mix of disappointment and curiosity in his voice. Having a path was better than having none. Comatage, Duke replied. Comatage? Stephen Strange frowned. The superheroes who knew of Carmitage looked at Duke suspiciously. Both sides were magicians. Why was Duke sending him there? Although they didn't understand Duke's reasoning, they knew this down-and-out doctor would undoubtedly become their comrade in the future. There are mages and saints there. You should be able to find your mentor, Duke explained. Where is Carmitage? Stephen Strange asked, still puzzled. Duke didn't save him, and although Stephen didn't know why, he decided to seize this last hope. After all, he was just a mortal and had no power to compel Duke to save him. To be given hope was already a gift. I can only tell you that they are in Kathmandu, but you have to find them yourself. It has nothing to do with money, and along the way, you may lose your life. You could be robbed, beaten, turned away, or even face death. So, do you still want to go? Duke asked. Stephen Strange hesitated for a moment, then nodded resolutely. Go. My hand is useless, and my life is also useless. How is it different from a dead person? Very good, Duke said, a hint of approval in his voice. End of this chapter. Chapter 358, The Test of the Paladin, Purifying Stratholme 1. Let's go, Duke said, waving his hand to send Stephen Strange out of Karajan. Strange stood dazed at the forest entrance for a moment, then bowed and turned to leave. He was about to start preparing for his journey to Kathmandu. He didn't have much money left. Travel expenses, accommodation, food and drink were the basics. Everything else could be ignored. He was ready for a long journey. He decided to sell all the useless things in his house to raise funds for the trip. Should he tell Christine? Maybe not. The path ahead was uncertain. It was better to find hope first. Back in Karazhan, a group of people were puzzled. Diana asked, You want to test him? Yes. The mental journey is the most important, just like what Steve will go through next. Sometimes external strength isn't as crucial as inner strength, Duke explained, glancing at Captain America before pointing to Tony. Take Tony, for example. His armor is powerful, but he himself is weak, especially his mind. I need about 0.1 energy to dismantle his armor, but only 0.01 to disintegrate him using fear magic. Tony frowned. I'm just a passerby. Fortunately, very few people know mind magic, so the chance of you encountering them is 0.01%. That's a relief, Tony sighed. The tempering of the soul was indeed troublesome. So, the small adjustments are over. Now for the main event. Are you ready? Duke asked, turning to Captain America. Yes, otherwise I wouldn't have come, Captain America replied solemnly. I hope you're prepared. This test is no joke, Duke warned as he led the way outside. He placed a model on the ground, about the size of a basketball. This is a scene illusion I created over the past few days. Although it's an illusion, everything you experience will feel real. You can feel pain, helplessness, madness, and even the physical pain of a sword. Of course, you won't die, but it will affect your mind. You must keep your mind stable to avoid being defeated. Okay, Steve nodded, feeling increasingly apprehensive. This is an event that actually happened in one of the astral planes I traveled through. I named it Purification of Stratholme. Everyone was curious. Stratholme? This is about a prince, a paladin, who went through betrayal, deception, and corruption, Duke explained before throwing the scene illusion into the sky. The scene changed, revealing a gray sky dripping with rain, hinting at a heavy and gloomy ending. The buildings had a magical medieval style, and a shield separated reality from the illusion. You will fall into a coma, and I will introduce your spirit into the body of the character you will play, Prince Arthas. For the first time, you will personally experience Arthas's mental journey in this incident. From the second pass, your spirit will be unsealed, and you will gradually merge with Arthas. The speed of this fusion depends on your willpower and spiritual strength. The stronger you are, the faster the fusion. Your ultimate mission is to stop this tragedy and prevent Arthas from falling into corruption. How many times you need to repeat this depends on your ability. Okay? Suddenly, I want to say no. This feels like hell difficulty, Captain America joked. No, it's the difficulty of Purgatory Nightmare, Duke corrected. All right, I'm ready, Captain America nodded. Good, Duke said. He extended his index and middle fingers, tapping Steve's forehead lightly, drawing out a wisp of white light and leading it into the scene illusion. The ball slowly drilled into Alsace's forehead, activating the illusion. Steve's body fell limply, and Peggy Carter quickly caught him. It was only then that everyone realized the prince Steve was portraying was not far away. He wore blue and white armor, carried the Lion King's seal on his back, and held a giant hammer, the Hammer of Justice, the power of Menethil, in his hand. This blond man was wielding his first weapon. In Northrend, Prince Arthas fell due to his anger against natural disasters. He abandoned the rules of the paladin and the power of Menethil, the Hammer of Justice, which symbolized his paladin identity. This act represented his break with his teacher. The prince then chose Holy Light's Revenge as his weapon and embarked on a journey to Northrend. After picking up the cursed sword Frostmourne in the Frostmourne Cave in Dragonbone Waste, he discarded the Warhammer Light's Vengeance. Okay, the plot is about to start. Everyone back off, Duke commanded, waving his hand. The irrelevant people exited the illusion and returned to reality. A huge holographic screen appeared before them, displaying everything happening in the illusion. Turn it on. Duke clapped his hands, and the scene's plot officially began. Steve felt strange. He was inside someone else's body but couldn't control it. He could only watch as the body moved on its own. It was his hand, his foot, but they didn't obey him. This feeling was surreal. As he carefully savored the experience, the narration began. Although he hadn't lived through any of this, it felt as if he had personally participated in the first half of the plot, instantly understanding the scene's background. Simultaneously, he screamed, "No, no, no," in his heart. He knew what Alsace might do next. Order the soldiers to massacre the 10,000-plus innocent civilians in the city. No, 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 such a tragic event. He finally understood the meaning of Duke's words. I hope you can bear it. He couldn't bear it. He was already flustered before he even swung the giant hammer of massacre, let alone using it to kill the civilians under his rule. He couldn't control this body, but this person was indeed himself. The narration was mainly for the outsiders to read, ensuring the audience could understand it. A holy city was about to become a city of weeping. In the 20th year of the Dark Portal, the Scourge Legion, dormant in Northrend, began to invade the kingdom of Lordaeron on a large scale, releasing the deadly plague of the undead. The only son of King Tyrrhenus, Prince Arthas, took on the important task of fighting against the undead scourge. But as the battle progressed, instead of reducing the army of undead, more human soldiers who died in battle and civilians infected with the plague became new undead. Faced with overwhelming evil and the frustration of failure, Arthas's fear and determination led to his frenzied actions. End of this chapter. Chapter 359, The Test of the Paladin, Purifying Stratholme 2. At this moment, the narration resumed. Among the many heroes and villains in Azeroth, Arthas Menethil stands out. He is the son of King Tyrrhenus Menethil II of Lordaeron and a natural leader. Since childhood, he has followed Uther the Lightbringer, the leader of the Knights of the Silver Hand, to learn the ways of the Holy Light. Everyone believed that he would become a great king, but in the end, he degenerated into a Death Knight who would do anything for power. Duke pressed the pause button. Let me explain something here. Lightbringer is the highest honor that can only be obtained by those who are extremely devout to the holy light, who have saved the world several times, and who have no other ambitions. Among the entire group of paladins, only this one, in terms of status, is more revered than the current Emperor Jiao. Everyone knew that this was an extremely firm believer. Immediately, the pause button was released. A segment showing Arthas's growth from childhood to adulthood was displayed. This was his first battle, and it became his last battle as a human being. At that time, a terrible plague began to appear in the territory of Lordaeron. The plague would turn the dead into walking corpses. In order to find a solution to the plague, the Kirin Tor sent Arthas's former lover, Jaina Proudmoore, to investigate. King Tyrrhenus also appointed the prince to assist Jaina. Over time, they discovered that an evil organization called the Cult of the Damned was spreading the plague through food. Searching for the source of the contaminated food, they finally captured Kel'Thuzad, the leader of the cult, in Anderhall, an important food-producing area in Lordaeron. In a rage, Arthas executed the evil wizard and his disciples. Although the leader of the cult was executed, it was only the beginning. A batch of food contaminated by the plague was on its way to Stratholme, and Kel'Thuzad was just a servant. His master, the Dreadlord Mal'Ganis, was entrenched in that city. As the birthplace of the Holy Knight Order, Stratholme had a large population. Once the plague broke out, the consequences would be disastrous. Arthas, focused on preventing the spread of the plague, was unaware of the conspiracy and led his troops to Stratholme without stopping. Stratholme was densely populated and was the most important city in the region, both strategically and economically. At the same time, it was also a sacred place, the birthplace of the Holy Knights. If Stratholme were to be conquered by the plague and occupied by the undead, it would cause disastrous consequences, and Lordaeron would completely lose half of its country. When Arthas and Jaina arrived in Stratholme, Uther the Lightbringer also rushed to help. But by then, it was too late. The plague-infected grain had already been distributed to the citizens, and they were all infected. Arthas realized that these innocent citizens would surely become the new force of the undead scourge. He ordered his soldiers, including Uther and the Knights of the Silver Hand, to massacre the citizens to prevent them from becoming minions of the scourge. He believed that this was the only way to prevent Stratholme from becoming a strategic center for the scourge. In Arthas's view, this was not only a strategic decision, but also an act of mercy. What would the residents of Stratholme do if they knew they were going to become undead, attacking everything they loved in life? If Arthas himself were infected with the plague, he would rather die cleanly as a human being with free will than let the plague pull him from the grave and become a walking corpse. Watching scenes of horrific images flash by, Steve in the illusion, and everyone outside were all dumbfounded. Humans fell, transformed by the plague into carrion ghouls. Looking at the countless tombs, the ancestors who had lost their flesh and blood, the tombs opened, revealing skeletal remains that grabbed their swords and attacked their former partners, children, Gror, and children, and other relatives and friends. It was like a scene from hell on earth. All the heroes stared wide-eyed, and Steve, who was caught in the illusion, felt as if he had experienced it himself. With his arms, he swung the hammer and smashed piece after piece of rotten flesh. To this day, he can still smell that rotten, nauseating stench in his nose. Death, disaster, despair, countless negative emotions began to surround him. "This is Resident Evil," Sea King Arthur said in shock, his eyes wide open. "Really?" Sky nodded. The rest were also silent. If you were bitten, you would be infected, and within a few hours to a week at most, you would become a ghoul. They could see that holy light could heal, and so could holy water. However, there were too few priests and paladins, and not just any priest or paladin could do it. You had to possess the power of the holy light to be strong. Healing holy water was a drug, diluted with holy light, which could only relieve but not cure at once. "What about high concentration of holy water?" someone asked. "Are you kidding me? That stuff can't be absorbed by ordinary people. It's undoubtedly a poison more toxic than the plague. Ordinary people simply cannot bear a large dose of high concentration holy light water. It would instantly destroy their internal organs." Therefore, even with the existing priests and paladins working in shifts, they could not keep up with the speed at which ghouls were being born. Is this true? It feels so disgusting. Is there really a plague that can turn people into ghouls? Resident Evil? Is that fake? Jennifer frowned, her expression like that of a bomb-ready lion. As a druid, a profession that respects life, she was naturally hostile to this kind of death puppet. This kind of thing actually happened, Diana said with a sigh. The enemy we killed, Steppenwolf, once brought a plague. In distant history, we should have perished, but we gathered together and burst out the strength of unity. Amazons, Atlanteans, humans, all human tribes fought side by side. Legendary warriors, allies from other worlds, and even the gods joined forces and sacrificed their lives to repel Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf, conqueror of worlds, was born to conquer. Countless people fell to his blade, only to re-emerge in his demon-like form, a nightmarish creature that feeds on fear. The initial war, the more you fought, the more enemies you could kill. The monsters seemed endless, just like these ghouls. However, the monsters shouldn't crawl out of the grave. Everyone sighed. Steppenwolf. It turned out that this was not an illusion, it was a real event. And it wasn't just a story from other worlds, similar things had happened in Earth's history. Actually, I have a question, Mr. Wayne said, frowning suddenly. Since the bones can be turned into ghouls, why kill these infected people? End of this chapter. Chapter 360, The Test of the Paladin, Purifying Stratholme, 3. Since the bones can be turned into ghouls, why did Arthas kill these infected people? Killing them or letting them die naturally, the end is the same. If this is the case, why did he commit such a heinous massacre? Mr. Wayne was puzzled. If corpses can rise again, why kill them? It seems so illogical. Curing them would be the best solution, even if it requires a lot of energy. You want to burn them? Samir suggested. It seems like it's too late to burn them. Unless the corpse is completely destroyed, it should still be able to rise again. Jennifer shook her head. As a druid who respects life, she quickly noticed the flaw. Yes, these undead have no fear of dying again, and unless the body or soul is completely destroyed, each fall is only temporary. Try the transformation of the first stage. The first stage transformation still requires living people. The dead cannot be transformed. After the second stage, you can directly summon the dead to resurrect, crawl out of the cemetery, and we don't need this spreading plague poison anymore. Duke explained. The second stage occurs after Arthas picks up Frostmourne and kills his father, allowing the curse's power to directly summon the dead from their graves. Mr. Wayne was speechless. What are you doing in the second stage now? The rest were also embarrassed. This is to show you the horror of the scourge, understand? Duke pouted, refusing to admit it was his own mistake. Okay, the real drama is about to begin. He clapped his hands and activated the scene illusion. Under his command, the people in the scene began to move. The curtain opens. Steve felt himself tremble and turned around. He felt like he couldn't control his words and actions in this body. It was as if someone else controlled his body to speak and act. Although his brain was still functioning, he couldn't control himself to speak. Steve turned around slowly, looked at the teacher in front of him and the Knights of the Silver Hand behind, and said, "I'm so glad you came here to support me, Uther." Inside, Steve frowned deeply. He already knew the relationship between the two. Since childhood, Arthas had followed Uther to receive the teachings of the Holy Light. Uther was not only his mentor, but also a father figure, and now he felt the humility that Arthas was losing. In ancient times, those in power demanded absolute loyalty and humility from their subordinates. Steve once read a magazine that said many mistresses of kings were escorted by knights, and he couldn't understand it at the time, but now he seemed to understand a little. To be a good knight, one must first have a heart that can keep secrets. It's about loyalty. Now, Arthas's humility seemed to have been discarded, and his loyalty seemed to be faltering. In this body, Steve sensed a smell of arrogance. Lightbringer. Uther frowned. Pay attention to your manner of speaking, child. Maybe you are a prince, but as a paladin, I am still your mentor. Steve nodded. Of course, I won't forget. Listen, Uther, there are some things you should know about the plague. We are too late. Those residents have been infected. They may seem normal at first, but soon they will become soldiers of the undead. Lightbringer, Uther was shocked. What did you say? Steve didn't care about his shock. He turned his head and looked at the still peaceful holy city, sighing heavily. The whole city must be completely purified. Steve was shocked again. Is this something a crown prince can say? He once read a book called Psychopasser. The setting is that there is a system in the world that can judge people's crime index. As long as you have a high criminal psychology or criminal tendency, your life and your freedom are at risk. The declaration was over. Can you imagine the rationality of such a society? It's unreasonable. In Steve's view, this is very unreasonable. It is precisely because of this that he will stop the Insight plan. Holding a weapon and pointing it at the ads of the people, claiming it is to protect their freedom. It can also analyze whether they will commit crimes from the data and solve them before committing crimes, creating a so-called utopia world. Like the Insight Project, before the people of Stratholme became the Scourge, they were the people of Lordaeron, a crown prince who dared to pick up a knife to slaughter his own people. Is there nothing wrong with that? Outside the illusion, Bronsky, the hate in this world, sighed. Sometimes, when soldiers execute orders, they choose to sacrifice the lives of a small number of people to ensure the interests of the majority. Under such circumstances, if I were to give the command, I would definitely order the massacre of citizens. Such inhumane words were actually spoken in Karazhan, but unfortunately, no one denied or accused him. Although Steve didn't want to admit it, he understood that this might be the best way at this moment. A mild infection without bread can be cured by the holy light. It stands to reason that if Jaina goes back to the Kirin Tor and sends a wave of troops, the paladins and priests will definitely save a small group of people, but the casualties will be greater. After all, while priests and paladins are healing, they will mutate into ghouls and attack the army. Also, how do you determine the difference between mild and severe infections? When a family of 3 has a son severely infected by the plague, and the parents are mildly infected, and you choose to kill the son at this time, do you think, will the parents resist? In addition, it won't take too long for the infection to turn into a natural disaster. Alsace doesn't have enough time to conceal the news and separate the severely and mildly infected people. Once this is done, mutiny will inevitably be stirred up, and there may be another conflict and battle at that time. Therefore, massacring the city is not an unacceptable choice. Lightbringer, Uther's eyes widened, and he said in shock, how did you come up with such an idea? There must be another solution. How can you destroy the entire city? Steve was very angry and ignored the etiquette of teachers and students, shouting, Damn it, Uther, listen. In the name of the future king, I order you to purify this city. Time is life. If more time is wasted, more natural disasters will be transformed inside, leading to an uncontrollable situation. The lives of the civilians inside are lives, but aren't the soldiers outside also lives? Lightbringer Uther also shouted angrily, You are not my king, child. Even if you were, I would not obey such an order. Steve smiled. Then I can only regard your behavior as treason. End of this chapter.